Hello, friends. I'm here. Oh my goodness. I look like I've had a wild morning. Bardell, thank you for the lurk. And Vinyl Stencil, thank you for the lurk. Bard, thank you for the bits. Oh my goodness. Shy Revenge, hello. How are you? Sorry. Organization of brain happening. Normally, this is when I open a file and start writing and whatnot. But today instead we're gonna do a bit of a chatty stream. My goodness, you can tell that I haven't been sleeping lately. Home, thankfully, nice. Today I'm gonna be doing something a little bit different from the normal. Which is I'm just gonna be going through some of my goals and accomplishments. I did one of these back in March. I like to do them every 3 months. It keeps me up to date on what I'm doing, and hopefully it keeps you guys up to date on what I'm doing as well. I'm also going to try and listen to the music in case any of these songs get really weird so that I can skip them. Woof! Hello! Dadzilla and I say hello. Hello, Dadzilla! Is Dadzilla listening in on the chat today to find out what I've been up to? Trying to boot up an old laptop. Fingers and toes crossed that it works for you for whatever reason you need it for. I know that I have actually sitting on this desk. You guys can't see it, it's off camera, but there's one of my old laptops that we use as an emergency backup whenever we need to, for whatever reason, have a backup computer, or I was sick a couple weeks ago and I needed to do D&D, so I did it from the other laptop. Hang on, I gotta fix my desk. So it's always nice to have an extra PC that works. Yeah, that is the problem with something being older. Is it because, are you needing the older one because your current PC is giving you problems, or is it just a backup? He is listening. Nice to know. Yeah, so a little bit different setup today. I don't know that I'll show much on my screen since I'm not planning to do any actual work today. This will be a chatty stream, so feel free to engage all the usual distractions. If anyone has any questions about my projects or my process or anything that we sometimes have to rush through because we're in between sprints and you want to spend some more time on it today, let me know. I'm definitely open for questions or chat or whatever you guys want to do. I want to sit in the living room so hubby can't give me grief for constantly sitting in my office area. Okay. I gotcha. Laptops are mobile. That is nice. I spend much of my time here in my office, but if my husband decides to sass me for it, I'll just sass him right back. So, yeah. So I did both of these back. Oh my god, words! Can you tell I've had like three sips of coffee this morning? If I had 3 cups of coffee, man, I would be bouncing off the walls. I've had 3 sips of coffee so far this morning. The words aren't coming easy. I did one of these back in March. I like to do them every 3 months. It helps me see where I am, what I'm doing, and it gives you guys some idea of what you guys can expect, hopefully, on the channel. Also, I'm taking a bit of time off this week. I don't have enough time in my schedule to do like a whole week-long sort of vacation. So I've just kind of created a long weekend for myself. I'm going to be taking the rest of today after this stream, which I don't necessarily consider this stream work, but I'm hanging out with you guys. So I'm going to take the rest of today and tomorrow and then Monday and most of Tuesday to just hang out. I'll show you guys. When I'm done with you guys, I'm gonna go do this cool puzzle. Dr. Facilier. He's got friends on the other side. I'm looking forward to that. It's 1,000 pieces. I did an Ursula one back at Christmas, and I really liked it, so that's going to be my project for the weekend. I'm still going to be around for Person's D&D campaign on Friday. I think that's going to be on Coliflum's channel. You know, the usual stuff. But I'm taking some me time. Marathnon, hello. How are you? If you would like to come out of lurk and speak to us. You don't have to, but you can. There we go. The fabulous hat. Big on the screen today. So yeah. Oh, goodness. I'm probably going to start by talking about the books that I've released so far this year. You can see 2 of the covers. Everything's backwards and I don't know how to. You can see the covers in the corner. I don't know how to handle the fact that everything is mirrored. Speaking? What is that? I don't know. It's something crazy people do, right? I hope you're doing well, Marathnon. I'm going to talk a little bit about the stuff I've published. I won't spend too much time on that because, of course, I've tried to let you guys know as the books have come out, but it's just an update on where I am. I'm going to let you know about the releases that are coming out for the rest of the year. I'm going to talk a little bit about the projects that I've been working on so far, some of which you've gotten to see on stream. And I'm going to be talking about the projects that I'm going to be working on for the rest of the year, some of which are going to happen on stream. So hopefully, if my brain decides to be organized this morning, we'll do it in an organized way. And if it decides not to be organized, then we'll just get there eventually. Oh gosh, oh my god, everything is sliding along my desk, the hat is sliding off my head. What is happening? Okay, so, I never know how to start these, so I apologize. This year, I did the same thing last year, but this year I set a goal to put a book out every other month, starting in February, so I should have 6 releases by the end of the year. 3 of them, as I promised, will be in the Celestial Serenade. Those are the covers that you can see up in the corner that I can't seem to point at. There's 1 more book coming in that series, plus a box set later this year, and also 2 books in my Eternity's Empire series, which will actually finish off the series. I started out in February with Duality, which you can see up there in the corner. The 4th book in the Celestial Serenade. The Celestial Serenade is, just for anyone who isn't familiar with the series, is a space opera. It focuses on sort of 2 sets of characters. One set comes from Earth, mostly present day, although I wrote it 10 years ago, so it's probably a little less present day than present day. And one is a group of characters from a place called Calterra, and they sort of both run into this problem of a very powerful mechanical dragon from outer space, Rugrats reference, points if you got it. That descends over their planets and wreaks havoc, and it's sort of about how these 2 civilizations who grew up in different planets come together. Roaming Witch, hello! Welcome to the stream. How are you? We're starting out talking about what I've published so far this year. So that's what the Celestial Serenade is about. It's going to be 9 books total. It's broken into 3 trilogies. The first, each one is sort of its own story arc, although the first 2 are very closely connected. So Duality was the first part of the 2nd story arc, which is possibly my favorite. I probably shouldn't have favorites, but it's possibly my favorite. I really love all the things that I got to do to expand the original story and the setting and all that, and all the world building in this second set of books, Duality, Unity, and Harmony, which is the forthcoming book. Also, my cover artist, as you can see, is flippin' amazing. I send her a wall of text, and she sends me back these gorgeous, gorgeous images. For Duality's cover, we had been talking about it since the beginning of the series, that we wanted to, there's a giant floating space city in this space opera, and we wanted to fit it on the covers from the beginning, so we finally were able to get it onto book 4's cover, and she just absolutely nailed, based on my descriptions, what I wanted it to look like. Like, it's so perfect. To be honest, just woke up, couldn't fall asleep until 4:30. Oh no, that's the worst. So I was just catching a little sleep, but came running once I saw you streaming. Oh, well, if you need to sleep, please do, but I'm so glad that you're coming to hang out. Hey, Bird of Inferno. Mostly going to be lurking because I have a lot to get done today, but I haven't been able to stop by for a while, so I wanted to say hello. Well, hello. I hope you're doing well. I hope it's the good kind of busy. And I really appreciate you lurking. I'm mostly talking today instead of tippy-tap, clicky-clacking. But I will be back to the regular productivity streams next week. For anyone who's wondering. I promise I won't yak your ears off forever. Just for today. So yeah, Duality came out in February, and then I followed that up this month here in June with Unity, which you can see up there as well, which focuses on probably my two favorite characters in the series. So I don't want to say too much. It's hard to talk about these books without getting into spoiler territory because they are books 4 and 5 of a series. Those book covers are so badass, right? My cover artist, Molly Phipps, at some point I'll switch camera angles so that we can see her website. But she's amazing. She's, again, I can't stress enough how, like, I basically just take little snippets from my notes, and she makes these gorgeous, fantastic, amazing. I have to, next week, I have to send her the description for what I want on the Harmony cover. So I have to decide kind of what I want to go on with that. And I'm really excited. Love the covers. I'm so glad. Everybody has said such wonderful things about these covers, and I love it. And I always pass it on to my cover artist. I let her know that people just rave about these covers because all credit to her. Like, these people might live in my head, but she brings them to life, so all credit to her. Prepping for Camp Nano. Nice! So it's the good kind of busy. Also recovering from COVID. Less nice. Sorry to hear that you had COVID, but glad that you're pacing yourself. I've heard that one of the hardest things about recovering from COVID is the fatigue. I did have a friend who had a fairly minor case because she had been vaccinated before she got it, but she still said that it took about 2 months on and off. She was like, I'll have really good days and I'll think, on myself again, and then I'll get really tired again. So it's important to pace yourself like that. Make sure that you're not pushing harder than your body can handle. So glad to hear that you're doing that. The COVID fatigue is real, right? Well, that's one of the things is, like, when I got sick over the weekend, I instantly was worried, like, oh no, did I somehow get exposed to COVID? Did I somehow get it? But I didn't have a fever ever, which was one thing, but I haven't had the fatigue. I haven't had the brain fog. And those are, like, sort of the classic things that I think everyone I know who's had COVID has mentioned one of those things. Like, either that, like, the brain fog gets bad or that the fatigue is really awful. So I'm not so worried about having had it because I haven't had that kind of lingering, and I'm mostly myself now. I still, when I talk, I can still hear that I have a little bit of the sinus gunk, but I definitely don't have the the tired, the bone weariness that people have described from COVID. So I think I just got some kind of sinus crud gunk thing Still within 2 weeks, and I'm already sick of it, but I was vaccinated, so it's just like the flu, not too bad. Glad to hear. I have heard consistently that if you're vaccinated and catch it, that it's much easier to deal with. So that's good. I'm glad to hear that. I didn't really have a fever with COVID, but I was definitely super crusty and had the fatigue and brain fog. Yeah, I remember you saying that you were feeling quite out of it for a while, Bard. Because I know you've had a lot of health stuff over the past few months. So, I mean, the good news is I've been told by people who have had COVID that it does eventually go away, but you just have to be patient with yourself. If you have bad days, just, don't kick yourself over the bad days. Just wait for the good days. But so yeah, that's the Celestial Serenade. I started publishing this series last year. I'm really excited about it. In a lot of ways, this was kind of the book series that taught me how to write. It was kind of where a lot of things finally clicked for me. I learned how to write my stories in layers and sort of, like, I wrote the Kalteran story first and then I layered the human story into it later. I learned how to edit with these books. Many of the books that I published prior to the Celestial Serenade, such as my Mystical Island series and my Dreamers Do Lie duology. Both of those I actually went back and rewrote after writing the first couple drafts of the Celestial Serenade. So everything that I learned from putting these books together, I actually went back and applied to older projects. So it's kind of weird that it's both older and newer than those projects, but it's definitely been a really interesting journey to actually bring these books into creation, and so I'm really, really excited that most of the original story is out there now. There's one more book in the first sort of, I said each trilogy has its own story arc. The first two are sort of also part of one story arc, and then there's a time jump between books 6 and 7. So I'm really excited to get Harmony out there. That one's coming out in October. Harmony will be out, and then the first 6 books will be out there, and it's just, I'm super excited that people can actually read these now. So that's been a big thing for me this year, has been continuing to get these books out. Seeing people's reactions to them, because people's reactions have been overall positive. One of our real life friends who's been on Ghost Stream a couple times, Mr. Roboto, he's actually in a book club, and he talked the book club into reading The End of All Things, the first book in the Celestial Serenade, and they loved it. Like, a bunch of them left me really good reviews, and they talked about, like, he told me some of what they talked about in the book club, which I was insanely nervous when he was like, our book club is reading your book, and I was like, oh my god, like, what if they hate it? This is gonna be like, I don't even know how many people are in the book club, but I was like, this is gonna be 10 people sitting around talking about how they hate my book. And ironically, he actually came over to our house right after the book club to play D&D, and I was just like bracing myself, because I was like, did they hate it? And he was like, no, everybody loved it. And his wife actually doesn't usually read these kinds of books. And she was like, she told me, she was like, I don't know if I'll read the rest of them, but I'm going to make Jeff tell me. Or I'm going to make Mr. Roboto, sorry, doxed. I'm going to make Mr. Roboto tell me the rest of what happens in the books, because he reads everything I write. So that was a really big confidence boost, especially for a series that's been like so near to my heart. So that's what's going on with the Celestial Serenade. Harmony is coming out in October. Hopefully sometime next month I will have a cover to tease for you guys, because I am getting those details to my cover artist now. And then in December, while we're talking about it, in December, the second box set for the Celestial Serenade will be out. The first box set is called Symphony of the Stars. It contains the first 3 books in the trilogy, as they were originally, it was originally all one book in my head. Each trilogy was originally all one book in my head. So Symphony of the Stars is basically what that story was for me when I was first telling it. All in one book. You can get it in paperback if you want a giant 720 page book. And the second volume of that, Song of the Spheres, will be out in December. I have to also figure out what I want to have on the cover for that, because my cover artist does, again, just amazing object covers for those. So that's happening. I'm really excited about that. I've had a lot of health stuff my whole life. Oh, Bard, I'm sorry to hear that. Although I know you've talked a little bit about that before, about how you've had to sort of figure it out with doctors and stuff, what's going on with you. I just hope that it is settling down and that you get a couple months ideally without having to worry about sickness, because being sick sucks. I was sick for like 3 days and I hated it and I was done with it. And I wasn't even like sick. I was just head cold sick. TJB Art, hello! Let me know if I said your name wrong. Welcome to the stream. How are you? We are just chatting about my book projects so far this year and things that are coming up on the channel. Usually I do productivity streams where I actually write or edit and do work sprints. But today we're mostly just chatting over some coffee. Zebra, hello! See, you are drinking coffee and feeling better because you can't feel bad while drinking coffee. It's solid logic. I can't argue with that. Definitely having a bit of a slow brain start morning, but the coffee is helping for sure. I'm drinking from my Ursula mug. That's actually a really awkward hold on my hands. Hang on, there we go. My Ursula mug. My favorite mug. So true. I need me some coffee, but our apartment has none. What? How does your apartment have no coffee? Just call me TJ. You got it. I'm doing good. 5,000 word goal this week, so I have some words to pump out. Good luck with those 5,000 words. That's a really healthy goal for a week. Sorry that we're not doing sprints today. Usually we would be doing words right along with you, but I will be back to doing writing and editing sprints next week. So, ooh, sorry. Frog in my throat. My throat's still a little dry. I drank all the coffee. I had a suspicion when you said our apartment has none. I almost was like, drank it all, huh? But I didn't want to be super sassy. Is there nobody who can supply you with more coffee to drink? I will say that I always keep our cupboards very well stocked with coffee. We have actually probably more types of coffee in the house than really we probably should, but I just, I keep us well stocked so that when we run out of one type of coffee, there's a replacement of that type of coffee in the house, or a new type of coffee to replace the type of coffee we ran out of. So yeah. I could, but that requires wearing pants and going to the store. No, I meant, is there somebody, like, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, significant other or roommate who could do the pants wearing and go to the store and bring you the coffee? I would never suggest putting on pants. Real pants? No. X. Aw, he's taking a mental health day and resting in bed. That's fair. So no pants for him today either. Pants, outlawed. Pants, forbidden. In the UK, that means something different. Because I lived there just long enough to learn that pants in the UK refers to underwear. So forbidding pants in the UK, much, much more risque. Especially no pants for the fiance. Exactly. So yeah, that's it with the Celestial Serenade. The other project that I am releasing this year is Eternity's Empire. That one I have not worked on as much on stream because by the time I started streaming, I was working on book 7 of the book, and it's hard to stream that far into a series when I actually have a very quick turnaround time for when I write those versus when I publish those. The Celestial Serenade has been written for maybe about 3 or 4 years. But Eternity's Empire, I pretty much write it, edit it, and publish it within 6 months. So I haven't been showing that one much on stream because I haven't wanted to spoiler too much. My Eternity's Empire is also a space opera in a bit of a different vein than the Celestial Serenade. I would say the Celestial Serenade is much more sci-fi. It has some mystical-like elements to it, but it's mostly science-based. I won't say it's hard sci-fi because I don't think I have the grasp of science to write hard sci-fi, but it's definitely grounded in reality, grounded in facts. I talked to Mr. Roboto as my AI guy. He actually has a master's degree in that field, so I get all of my information on that sort of stuff from him. But Eternity's Empire is much more sort of sword and sorcery in space. It's very heavily inspired by Sailor Moon, which I've mentioned in the past, something that I was very passionate about in my childhood. Still kind of am. You guys can maybe see up in the background there some of my Sailor Moon stuff. So Eternity's Empire is a bit more, I like to call it magical girls in space. So it definitely has that Galactic Empire space opera vibe, but it's very much, the combat has a lot of magic. It's very sort of anime style. It's less reality grounded, and it's more sort of fanciful. It's basically, you know, if Sailor Moon happened in space. There are 8 books in that series. Currently, 7 of them have been published. Let's see if I can remember all of them off the top of my head. It starts with The Light of Eternity, The Soul of the Earth, Secrets of the Past, The Bond Between Sisters, The Family You Choose, Tales of the Exiles, and The War for Freedom. I did it. I remembered all 7 of them. Book 7, The War for Freedom, came out in April. Months hard. Came out in April. I was very pleased to put that out. I actually did most of the cover building on stream, which was kind of fun. I'm hoping to do the cover of the next book on stream sometime next month, which would be nice. It's a little bit different from my regular streams because I don't do like sprints. And also, if you guys think I get hyper focused when I'm editing, wait until you see me being hyper focused on trying to get a cover to look the way I want it to look. I actually make the Eternity's Empire covers. I unfortunately can't quite afford to hire Molly for six covers every year. She does 4, and I do 2. So the Eternity's Empire covers I've been doing. And the 8th book for that is written. It is edited. It is with my beta readers. And that is called, I think it's the Empire of Eternity. I keep going back and forth between the Empire of Eternity and the Empire for Eternity. But I believe I settled on the Empire of Eternity. So the Empire of Eternity, book 8, the final book in Eternity's Empire, will be available in August, actually. That's going to be my next release. And usually, if you peek into my Hey, Anne. Good morning. How are you? What are you up to today? It is Anne, right? Did I misremember your name? Have I been calling you the wrong name for like 4 days? Please let me know. I'm always like, I think I remember she said I could call her Anne, but then I'm like, are you? Because I'm so horrible with names. I apologize. I apologize for being horrible with names. Sorry. Just train jumping the tracks. Yes, I did. Okay, oh my gosh. I've mentioned before, I have whole conversations with people in, like, face-to-face where I don't remember their name, and then afterwards my husband is like, that was so-and-so. So sometimes I'm like, yes, I did it, I remembered someone's name, and then I just psych myself out, and I'm like, no, wait, what if you didn't remember their name? What if you've just totally been talking to calling the wrong person the wrong name? That's, like, my perpetual nightmare. What was I saying? Yes, Eternity's Empire. It's written, it's edited, it's with my beta readers. It's going to be out in August, and then that whole series will be finished. Yes, I was saying, if you peek inside the Eternity's Empire series, each book is 5 chapters long, and each chapter is roughly 10,000 words, because originally, when I started writing them, Kindle Vella wasn't a thing, and I was putting out chapters every month. And then eventually every other month, and then I kind of realized that it was just better if I do them as big books. Of course, they've gotten progressively longer as time has gone on. They went from being 10,000 word chapters to being 12,000 word chapters, so the 8th book is significantly longer than the first book. But there's an extra chapter in book 8. Book 8 is actually 6 chapters instead of the usual 5. So look forward to that extra long final installment conclusion that's coming out in August. No worries, I get it, I'm the same way. I made a new best friend and forgot her name until she added me on my author Facebook page. Then I was like, oops, I was thinking her name was a whole different, not even close name. I have done things like that. I'm actually, whenever I meet someone else who's like, I'm sorry, I won't remember your name, I'm like, thank you, because I feel much less insane. Somebody did actually, we were at a staff party, and one of the other spouses was like, I'm really sorry, but I'm gonna forget your name. And I was like, I feel you. On a soul level, that resonates with me. I was like, I won't remember your name either, but I will remember. And I don't remember his name, but I do remember that he was like, super upfront about, like, I've met 50 people and I've remembered like 2 of their names. Oh my gosh, my eyes, the weird thing about this like head cold is that my eyes have been watering. It almost feels like I'm crying, but it's just my eyes are just randomly watering. So I apologize. I swear to you guys, I'm not having an emotional moment. I'm just trying not to have tears dripping down my cheeks. So yeah, I'm super excited about that. I'm super excited to have it finished. Next year, in April, my first, what would normally be Eternity's Empire release will be Eternity's Empire Part 2. There's a big, like with my Celestial Serenade, there's a big, sort of coffee table edition of the first 4 books in the Eternity's Empire series. Again, just big old coffee table book, or you can get the bundle digitally. The second part of that will be coming out at the beginning of next year with the last 4 books, so I'm looking forward to that. I will remember faces, and oh no, head colds are not fun. My whole family just got over it this week. Oh my gosh, right? It's such a weird time to have a head cold. Because someone even pointed out to me yesterday, they were like, June is a weird time for a head cold, and I was like, right? But our weather has been so weird in our area, and the pressure has been all over the place, and I'm wondering if just, like, the rapid pressure changes just got to a point where my sinuses were like, fuck you, I'm done. I don't know. I'm feeling better, so it had to have been, like, a cold, but oh man. My husband had it 2 weeks ago, then I got it last week, then my son got it. Oh no! It is the worst when you pass it around the house, though. Like... Hopefully it won't cycle back to the original person by the time it's done. But I'm glad that you guys are feeling better, and I hope that you've seen the end of the cold. My husband has been a little bit sniffly the past couple days too, but it's allergy season, so he's always like this during allergy season. So I don't know if he caught it from me or if he's just having like the usual allergy stuff. But that's my publishing news for the year. That's sort of where I am on what books are coming out. I do try to post a publishing schedule on my blog at the beginning of each year. I've stuck to it so far. I'm pretty proud. August's release is, I think, going to be on time. I basically just have to get the formatting together, get the notes back from my beta readers, that kind of thing. So it's just sort of in its polishing stages. And hopefully I'll be on track to do a similar release schedule next year. So that's the stuff that you guys get to actually like see, which makes it feel like the biggest deal, is because it's the stuff that you guys can actually like go on Amazon and find and read. Also, I should mention, I will drop a link for this, but I should mention that there are samples on my website. So if you pop over to megancutler.net, which the link is in the chat, there is a little section at the top for each of my projects. And if you go into, say, the Celestial Serenade, you can actually read the first 3 chapters of The End of All Things. You can read the first chapter of Across the Void as well. And then if you look at Eternity's Empire, you can read the first 3 chapters or the first 3 parts of the first chapter on there. If I put the first 3 chapters, that would be like 60% of the book. I wouldn't be able to do that. And as well, you can read the first 3 chapters of each of the Mystical Island books on my website to see if you would be interested in giving those a try. I leave for hardly a minute and I come back and find my cat sitting looking all comfy in my chair. That boy is fast. Well, of course, it was warm. You warmed it up for him and it's his now. And he's claimed it. It is his now. You were just there to warm it. Also, I forgot that I added the cat emote from 7TV, so it just appears. Whenever you say cat, it does that little thing. Oh, thank you, Anne. I actually keep feeling like I should update it because this is an older layout. But I feel like it's sleek and hopefully easy to find things on there. So I've kind of been trying to keep it as up to date as I can. I don't know if Wolf is still lurking. But Wolf actually helped me set this up. There was a lot of formatting that we had to do with the header and stuff. So, yeah, so I try to keep it up to date. I think I probably haven't added the most recent Celestial Serenade book yet. I'm a little bit behind on that. I need to get the covers onto the page. But I do try to keep that up to date with samples and stuff so that... and if you decide to go... searching through the blog archive, you might find a couple of shorts that I wrote that relate to the Celestial Serenade in the writing prompts archive. We have a house rule called Law of Cat. If the boy has laid somewhere, you may not under any circumstances disturb the cute kitty. I think you told me that before, yeah. Cats are under no delusions. They know that they're gods, and we are just here to pamper them, and that's it. That's how it goes. So now that I've talked about the stuff that I've published this year, I want to get into some of the stuff that I've been working on this year, which is the stuff that you guys actually see me doing on stream. And again, if anybody has any questions about like my process or my projects or anything, feel free to interrupt at any time. I definitely don't mind going off on some tangents. Yeah, so I have a pretty ambitious writing schedule. I think I've mentioned a few times before, I do what's called draft cycling. So I write something, usually a trilogy, because I basically just work in trilogies now. I write something, I set it aside, I edit something that I had previously written, And then I set that aside, and then I polish something that I have previously edited, usually getting it ready for my publishing queue, and then I go back and write something new to start that process over. So mostly what ends up happening is the first 2 months of the year, January and February, I'm usually finishing up the project that I started the last year. And you guys saw me stream that. That was when I wrote book 9 of my Aravalia Chronicles in January and February. And then I have this just big block chunk from basically March until September where I'm editing. And that's sort of where I am right now. We've been editing books. We've been editing the second trilogy, so books 4, 5, and 6 of Aravalia's Chronicle, which is called The Beast's Wicked Gleam. We just actually yesterday finished up book 5, the edits for that, and I'm going to be starting the edits for book 6 next Wednesday, I think. Wednesday or Thursday. I think it's going to be Wednesday. This for me is the toughest time of the year because editing is the toughest part of the writing process for me. It feels long and slow and unwieldy, and I actually hate it. Hopefully you guys can't necessarily tell from watching me on streams because I try to be as upbeat about editing as I am about writing, but it's definitely the hardest part of the process for me. It's definitely the part that frustrates me the most. And in some ways it's been really nice to stream it because it keeps me on the days that maybe are sometimes feel like rough days, it keeps me a little bit more upbeat to have the chat, to talk to have you guys hanging out with me, to know that people are you know, working on stuff at the same time that I'm working on something that maybe isn't my favorite thing to be doing at that moment. I always have to pop in and out when you're live because I'm usually working, so maybe you've answered this before, no worries. But have you considered doing audiobooks? I have. I think last year we were actually trying to set up something. I was trying to set up something with Collie and Flutter, who had expressed an interest in doing some narration for an audio version of the Mystical Island series, but it just hasn't quite panned out yet to do the recordings. Partly because our weather was really weird last year. Collie and Vinyl actually live not that far from where Ghost and I live. Our weather was really weird here last summer, and there just was a lot of fire and flood, which sounds very biblical, but is not inaccurate. And I think just with everything that was going on at the time, it kind of fell through the cracks. And I know Flutter has a lot going on now, so I'm not sure that this summer will happen either. I want to do audiobooks. It's kind of the next thing on my list. It's mostly I need to figure out the logistics of getting it recorded and getting it edited and formatted so that it can be uploaded. I don't actually know that much about producing audiobooks, but it is something that I want to do. I know that lots of people, you know, enjoy their books primarily through the audio format these days because of commutes and other things. Not everyone can sit down and focus on, you know, words on a page for hours on end like I do. I know that as well. I know I have friends that, you know, they listen to novels while they're cleaning the house, or they actually feel like they can focus better on the story if it's being read to them. So it is something that I have wanted to do from some time. It's mostly just that I'm uncertain about the logistics, and the people who are trying to help me with the project have also been busy. So it is in the works. And I know I've had a few people who have expressed interest in potentially narrating for me in the future. So it's gonna happen. I just don't know when. And it's mostly just that I need narrators that have a block of time that they can sit down and do the recording. And it has to be edited after that because like there are specific requirements by Audible in order to upload the book that I'm just only passingly familiar with. Speaking of audiobooks, how do you prefer to consume your books? Audio or physical? I personally prefer physical books. Even to, like, digital books, I think, are great, and I sell many more digital books than physical books, and I have tons of books on my Kindle. Woof, thank you for the lurk. Appreciate. But my like, preference in terms of, like, my ideal is I like physical books. I like paperbacks. I like to curl up on the couch with a hot drink and a paperback book and just get stuck in it for hours on end. These days I put on some white noise, some soothing ocean noises, and I just read. I don't get to read for hours on end as much as I would like to anymore because busy life. Adulting is hard. Yeah, that would be my personal preference. If you need a volunteer for narration, I read books to my niece and nephew, and they are happy to be references for me. Ooh, if you're okay with getting it done in small chunks whenever I have time. Well, I appreciate that, Bard. I can certainly, I don't know where I am on the status of any of these projects, but I definitely appreciate the offer, and I can definitely be in touch with you about that. I have listened to you on stream, and I like your voice, so... you know, and I think reading to your nieces and nephew is the perfect reference. So, follow-up, do you feel like it's important for authors to physically see words and word structure to keep their writing muscle up to par? Ooh, that's a tough question. I love a good hard copy of a novel, but man, the convenience of Kindle and audiobooks is just so nice. Yes, I'm not ignoring your second question, Roaming Witch, but this one's faster. Yes, I think that being able to travel with my Kindle was a game changer, because I can have 100 books on my Kindle and it's light and easy to carry, whereas I used to go on vacation with a backpack full of, like, heavy books, and it doesn't work as well. So I definitely think the convenience of Kindle and audio are great and important. I would never say that, like, digital or audio books are less in any regard, but I do think that for me, there's just something about physically holding the pages, right, and turning the pages. Do I think it's important for authors to see words and word structure? Yes. There is a difference between... It's interesting because there's a difference between written and spoken word, and I think that authors need to both see their work and hear their work. I actually, you guys will find this out in the coming months, but I actually do my late stage editing passes out loud. I actually read my books to myself, which is hard when there's someone else in the house. The roughest thing for me about COVID was that I had to do late stage editing passes, and my husband was in the next room, and I lived in perpetual fear that he would hear me reading my novels to myself and, I don't know, think they were stupid. Which, even if he did, he would never say. He would never look at me and be like, yeah, that chapter you just read today was, like, cringe, because he's not that kind of person. But, you know, when... you know, you don't want people to know. I don't want to necessarily know. I don't want to be in the same room with someone when they're reading my stuff. I want the illusion of not having to face the fact that somebody's actually reading something I've written. But there are things that you need to be able to pick out visually in your novels when you're writing them, and it's things like you need to know where the commas go. You need to be able to look at a sentence and divide it into its core parts. And it's harder to do that sometimes when it's being spoken out loud, right? Because each person is going to give a different inflection to different words. So you need to be able to look at the words that as you have them written on the page and try to divide up the text in a way that is going to be inflected as closely to what you want it to be as possible. I do think there's a visual, physical aspect of that, of being able to look at words on a page. And it's also even down to stuff like I think I can show you guys this book that I'm reading is an awful book. And one of the really awkward things that you should never do is this. You see this page right here? You see how that almost that entire page is a paragraph. And that paragraph is also half of that page. Don't do that. Never do that. You want there to be white space. If I turn to an earlier page in the novel, you see how there's white space? You see how it's broken up and how there's space in between what's being said? You want that. And you're not necessarily trying to create a visual pattern. You're not necessarily going in with the intent, like this express intent to say there should be white space here and there should be white space there. But when you look at the image of your work zoomed out, there should be space in it. There should be flow in it. So there's definitely a visual aspect to it. But it's also important to hear your work. It's also important to hear the way the words flow and to see if those words are flowing the way that you want them to flow. So I think it's important to have both. They love the many silly voices I do. Well, I'm glad that you mentioned that, because I was going to say, if you narrate my audiobooks, you got to do voices. I used to be such a book snob until I figured out that I could listen to audiobooks while driving, cleaning, etc., and it was a game changer. Although part of me still feels like cheating. I mean, I feel like that too sometimes, but if that's how you have time to engage with stories, like, the most important thing is that you're engaging with the story. You're getting your brain is working on imagining what you're hearing, right? That's fine. Like, you're at least engaging with that medium. I think that's the most important thing. No matter how you experience books, you're at least experiencing them. Should we read it openly online? I'm not sure the question, Zebra. I think because I didn't read it at the time that you sent it. If you want to, if it was in regards to me saying that I was gonna do some of my late stage editing out loud on stream, if you feel comfortable doing that, go for it. That wall of text, right? Don't do that. Do not have like a solid page that's a solid like, break it up, yo. Another fun question. What is the worst book you've read? I don't want to say the name of it, because it was, somebody that I met online, offered to send me a paperback of their book. This is why I don't do review exchanges for people anymore. Whenever someone that I don't, like, know really well is like, hey, will you read my book? Ingrid writes, welcome to the stream. Thank you so much for the follow. I'm very careful about saying yes, because someone once paid to send me a physical copy of a book that they had written and self-published, and it wasn't good. Their idea of foreshadowing was basically to have the characters say over and over that they had secrets that they weren't going to say yet, and things like that. And it was this person was very proud of their style, and I don't talk to them anymore. I don't know if they're not around anymore, if they just, like, you know, sort of cross me off their list after this, but it was not my thing, for sure. It didn't feel like it was specifically well crafted. That one was pretty bad. I've read so many, like, bad traditionally published books, though. I read a series, I think they were called, like, Ink and Parchment. I don't have them anymore. I got rid of the books. It was a 2-book series, and the author was definitely trying something experimental. And the idea that he had was very intriguing, which was that the idea of the universe as, what's the word? I think it's a pamphlet or something like that. Let me find the word. palimpsest. This, hang on. Dictionary. I don't know if I'm saying it right, so let me actually put the link to the dictionary. The idea is that he had this concept of a universe where pieces of it were constantly deleted and rewritten, and so he had written this book in like fragments, but it was so disjointed and so like inconsistent that it just ended up being confusing and uninteresting. And rather than reading the whole book, I just kind of skimmed I read like the first half of the first book, and then I just kind of skimmed the rest of the other two books because we had bought them. Thank you for the stretch, Halo Banshee. This is why it's very important to get honest feedback and good editors. Absolutely, don't skimp on the editor. And a hydrate. And this person who I'm talking about, like, they didn't want constructive feedback. They didn't want to change their work. They liked what they had done, and they wanted to keep it that way, and that was their choice. I'm not judging them for that, but I definitely could not give them a good review on the book. So yeah, those are some of the worst books that I've ever read. Although this series that I'm reading right now, The Monarchies of God, is pretty bad. It's pretty garbage. Don't read it. Not to turn this into a whole Q&A segment, but I'm curious to know your process for getting beta readers. I will answer that in a second. You do not want to be in the room with someone reading your work. Perhaps we should read it online and get you past the fear. And others can hear how good it actually is. As long as I don't have to be there for the recording, as long as I can, like, watch the recording back afterwards, ? I've had several people ask me for critique and then get upset when I give constructive feedback. That always confuses me. That's a really common thing, unfortunately. You do have to have a bit of a thick skin when it comes to that sort of thing, because you're giving someone your baby and you're asking them to tear it apart. And so one thing is, actually, I have to, hang on, let me blow my nose. I need to blow my nose super badly. Actually, sorry, bug. Let me take a quick BRB because I don't want to rush through this. I want to answer the question about beta readers and constructive feedback, and I actually want to spend a little bit of time on this. Let me take a quick bio break so I can blow my nose off camera and give my coffee a bit of a refresh, and then I'll dig into this because this is an important topic. So 1 sec, give me 2 minutes, and we'll talk about this. sorry about that, guys. I was having a extreme need to blow my nose, and I didn't want to do it on camera. They were probably hoping for nothing but praise. Yeah. I think a lot of writers go into that phase with that mindset. So first of all, how do I find beta readers? It's hard to find beta readers, and a good beta reader, once you find them, is worth their weight in gold. So treat them good. My process for finding beta readers has largely been trial and error. I started with close friends. So off the top of my head, I can name 3 of my beta readers. Wolf is a beta reader for me, has been for pretty much as long as I've been writing. He's beta read every single novel I've ever published. Flutterdye, again, pretty much has beta read every single one of my books. And my mother-in-law, actually, surprisingly, she beta reads for me, and she's great at it. I think she started doing it as a favor, because, you know, when I was a young, struggling artist, not really sure what I was doing, I think as a favor, she was just kind of like, yeah, I'll read this, and I'll help you with it. And as time has gone on, I feel like her feedback has been genuine. And she seems to be genuinely impressed with how I've improved as a writer. She connects with my characters, and I know this because when I do my beta reading, I send out a questionnaire, and I always ask what the most interesting character is and what the least interesting character is. Not who their favorite is, and who they like and dislike, because those are different things, right? I want to know who they're interested in. And one time she sent me back like 2 paragraphs about how she hated this one character, and he was such a bad guy, and I was like, yes, well written then. Because she just had this very nuanced opinion of why he was a bad person. So those are like my core. But I've met writers online through various ways, and they beta read for me when they can. Writers end up getting very busy a lot, so sometimes my beta readers have to stop betaing for me. A lot of the time, people offer to beta for me, and I send them a book, and I never hear back from them. It happens. Actually, my husband's boss, Ghost Pepper's boss, beta read a couple books for me, and really enjoyed them, but he doesn't have the time to do it very often. So it's hard to find good betas. You can try to do an exchange, with someone, to see like if you beta for them and they beta for you, but it can be hard because you might give them really good feedback and they might give you nothing. So it's always a bit of a gamble. If you're looking for some constructive feedback, Bard, I'm very busy. I cannot make specific promises, but we are friends enough that I would be willing to try and figure something out for you if you message me. I can't make that promise to everybody. Asterisk, disclaimer, I can't, I'm so busy. I want to give feedback to everyone who asks, but I don't. I actually run an editing service. People pay me to edit their novels. And if anyone's ever interested in that, we can chat. But unfortunately, what it means is that I often can't do beta reading. Beta reading should be free. You shouldn't have to pay for it. But it means because I run an editing service and because people pay me to actually edit their work, I don't have time to do the free beta reading as often. I'm going to catch up on chat quick, and then we're going to talk about constructive criticism, because that's an important thing too. I don't expect to get praise. I wish for honest feedback. Good mindset, because it's more damaging than it is helping. You need to know what's not working. You need to know what's wrong with the book in order so you can fix it. I crave constructive feedback because I learn so much from solid feedback, so I just don't understand. I hate it when people are just like, it's good. Yeah, it's good doesn't help you figure out how to improve it, right? Wish I had a mother-in-law who would do that for me. She's not a reader of fiction. She thinks it's a waste of money and time, so needless to say, she's not happy with my career choice. I'm sorry to hear that. I don't think my mother-in-law was really a fantasy reader before she started reading some of my stuff. I know she's reading David Eddings' Belgariad now, so I know that she's sort of tuned into this kind of reading now that she started reading for me. I think, like I said, I think she kind of started doing it as a favor, and then she did end up getting invested in it. I'm very lucky. My in-laws are amazing people. My father-in-law even read a couple of my books, which they are definitely not his jam, but he's read some of them as well, and I was shocked because I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't think he would even be interested in these. How many beta readers should one have? I try to get 5. I often don't get that much feedback for all of the books in the series, and as the series goes on, I tend to shed beta readers as well, which makes me sad. I would say you want at least 3. So between, 3 and 5 if you can. As many as you can comfortably handle. But I think, you want... Because if one person says something is a problem, it's not necessarily a problem. You need at least 2 people saying that thing is a problem before you know for sure that it's a problem. So you need enough people that you can get overlapping feedback, but not so many that you have too many conflicting voices, if that makes sense. She's like, wait, let me make the disclaimer first. I have to say that because I don't want to disappoint people. A lot of people come on the stream and ask me to read stuff, and I feel very bad, but I just don't. You can post the stuff on Discord, and I know that there's other people in the writing community who will hopefully look at it and give feedback, but I unfortunately just don't have a lot of reading time, and I just can't give feedback to everybody who wants it. I wish I could. I wish I could just spend all day doing it, but I can't. I'll have to actually write something before I would be ready for critique. That is true, Bard. Hopefully that will give you some incentive. I honestly wouldn't mind giving beta reading a try. I once tried doing a little bit of it on a website where you got paid to beta read. That would be cool. And the book I got was so bad. Yeah, so that's the hard part. Hey, Kiki, how are you? What are you up to? Yeah, there are groups on Facebook where you can look for beta readers. It is a good place to start. It's kind of a crapshoot. You just have to trial and error until you find someone good. But when you find someone good, oh man, make that connection. Buy them chocolates. Do the thing so that they will keep reading for you, because good beta readers are worth their weight in gold, I'm telling you. So a couple words. I wanted to talk about this because Bard was saying, I don't understand why people don't want constructive criticism. I think that a lot of people fundamentally misunderstand what constructive criticism is. So, constructive criticism is not saying, this sucks, this is awful, I hate this, like, that's just mean. But it's also not saying, this is great, I love this is wonderful, because that's not helpful. Constructive criticism informs you about why something is good or why something is bad. And this is the reason why I have learned that I don't just send out a manuscript to my beta readers. I send a questionnaire. I ask them things like, at what point did you feel like the story really got started? Were there places where you felt bored or like you were skimming? Were there parts of the story that you didn't understand? Which of the characters did you find interesting? Which of the characters didn't really interest you? Things that will make them think about the story in sort of a specific way. Some people do this very naturally, such as, I'm going to keep calling out Wolf. I don't know if he's still listening, but he's an amazing beta reader. He's going to have like 50 people who want him to beta read for him after this conversation. He does this naturally. He will naturally say, this doesn't make sense to me, or I don't really understand this part of the story, or this is when I ask, when in the questionnaire, when I say what character did you find most interesting, he actually writes out a little paragraph for each character and tells me what he thinks of like all of the main characters. And like, he doesn't just tell me the most interesting one and the least interesting one. He actually tells me what he thinks about like the whole cast, and it's amazing. I can't stress enough, like, his beta reading is the best. So you need to know why something. You need to know why something works, and you need to know what isn't working, and possibly why. So constructive feedback Constructive feedback would be something like, I really like this part of the novel because it resonated with an experience I had. Or I really like this sentence because it paints a vivid picture for me. Or even things like Flutter's really good for this too, is like she'll leave me little messages like, I hate you, which doesn't sound like it's helpful feedback, but it is. I got a text from her one morning when she finished a specific part, and I remember because I was traveling. She finished a specific part of my novel, and she sent me 2 texts. The first one was, I hate you, you monster, and the very next text 5 minutes later was, have a good flight. So leaving little indications of like your emotional state at a time in the novel, little like heck yes or whatever, like comments like that, those are helpful because then you know people are engaged in that part of the story. You know that the story is doing what you want it to do based on people's emotional reactions. On the flip side, you also need information like like, this doesn't make sense to me, or this character doesn't resonate with me, I can't really connect with their motivations, or this part of the book feels incomplete for me, or one note that I sent to, I don't want to go into too many details because obviously confidential, like I'm not going to start talking about people's work, but I did send a note to one person I edited for recently where it felt like something, her characters were trying to do something dangerous and it felt like it was too easy. And I was like, they're really worried. There's a lot of tension throughout these chapters, but it doesn't feel like it ever comes to a head. And I was like, maybe there should be something, even if it's just minor, that really makes that tension feel warranted. That's constructive feedback. I'm not saying that that part of the book is bad. I'm just saying that for whatever reason, I didn't connect strongly enough to that part of the book as I wanted to. Maybe you want to do something to fix that. And there's some really, really excellent writing advice by Neil Gaiman out there, which I quote a lot, which is, oftentimes people can tell you what is wrong with a book, but not how to fix it. And that's what constructive criticism is. It's saying, this didn't work for me, and then it's not necessarily telling the author how to fix it. It's not necessarily saying, you need to do it this way, or you should do it this way. You can say, maybe something like this would work, or maybe if something like this happened, or if there was something similar to, you can make those suggestions. Ultimately, it's up to the author to figure out why that's not working and fix it. But that's the kind of information that you need is, this worked because it made me feel an emotion. This did not work because it didn't make me feel an emotion. Or it made me feel the wrong emotion. Or I hated this character and I don't think you want me to hate this character. That's constructive criticism. And some people have a hard time hearing that. Some people have a hard time hearing that their work isn't perfect. And I have stopped reading for people in the past because, you know, they have either been acted very negatively towards the feedback I gave them, or just flat out discarded it because they were like, no, it's not actually wrong. Which fine, if you don't think that it's wrong, that's fine, but I'm not going to spend, 20 hours beta reading for you if you're just going to be like, whatever, I don't care. But that's what constructive feedback is, and that's why it's important. Quietly lurking, have lots to do, but I like listening. Angelique, I hope you're having a good day. Thank you for lurking, I appreciate it. I don't have a ton of time to do critiques or anything these days, but when I did, I tried to be really specific about things that didn't work and why. That's what people need. As well as providing feedback on things that I saw that really worked. You sound like a really good beta reader, Bard. I love doing critiques for people that I was friends with because I could say things like, how absolutely dare you, and they knew exactly what that meant. Yes! I love that too. I love it when Flutter left me a note in another one of my books that was like, you're making this too complicated, because there was a situation that was, intense. And she couldn't figure out how it was going to get resolved. And she literally was like, you're making this way too complicated. I can't see how this character is going to get out of this. Which is good. That's good feedback for me. For one of the people I edited for, she had this scene where two of her characters were in like a boat, and they were characters that, you know, first of all, I hardcore shipped, but also were kind of like leaning towards being together in the book. And I just put a note, and in all caps, I started writing the lyrics to Kiss the Girl from The Little Mermaid. And I was like, that's either going to really resonate with this, because this was an author that I was just starting to work with, and I was like, they're either going to really appreciate that or think I lost my mind. And after I sent the manuscript with that note in it, the author messaged me and was like, I was so happy when you put the lyrics to that song, because that's exactly what I was thinking when I wrote the book. And I was so glad that I left her that note, because she knows that she evoked exactly the image she wanted to evoke, because I thought the exact same thing she did when I read it. And that's what you want. That's what you want to know. She does have a beautiful podcast voice, just listening to her about beta reading and critical feedback, if I even said that right. Oh, is that about me? You guys! Red flag for me is when someone responds by either arguing with something I said or trying to explain it to me in response, because I'm only telling you what didn't quite work for me. If you feel like you need to explain it to me separately or defend it, I feel like you should probably reassess why you're needing to send me a page-long message about why I don't understand. Yeah, and I think talking about critical feedback is important too. Like, if I see a note that I don't understand, and I've done this a few times, again, Wolf can attest, and with Flutter as well, if I see a message that I don't quite understand what they're trying to say, I'll send a message and I'll be like, hey, you marked this and you said blah-de-da. Can you expand on that? Can you tell me what that means? And I have a few times had to explain, because sometimes people do just miss things, right? And so there have been a few times where I've messaged someone and I've been like, hey, here's an explanation of that thing that you said you were confused about. In that context, do you think that makes sense in the book, or do you think I should change it, right? Stuff like that, like conversations like that, you can have those conversations, but you have to approach it not from the standpoint of they are wrong and I am right. You have to approach it from the standpoint of, is this a confusion that resulted from lack of information that I put into the book, or is this a confusion that happened for some outside factor, like they were tired that night, or it had been a while since they read this other chapter. Those things can be indicative too. Do I need to move these two events closer together? Do I need to remind somebody about this other event before this new information happens, because otherwise they might forget. It might have been so long since they saw that. There is a certain art to recap, right? Especially when you're writing a long series, right? I'm outlining book 10 of the Aravalia Chronicles. To some extent, I'm going to have to make reference back to things that happened in book 1, because it could be 3 years since someone read book 1, right? I might need to remind them something that occurred, or, you know, some of the onus is on me to help the reader keep track of things. But if you're just sending someone a dissertation on, here's why my writing is perfect and not what you said, then you're not taking the feedback to heart, right? You're not taking it with the right mindset. You're just trying to be. And I've had those moments as a writer. I still have those moments. Sometimes I go over some of my beta readers' feedback and I'm like, what is this person talking about? What do they mean? That information is in the novel. I can find it right here, right? Sometimes I have those moments, but I have them privately to myself. And then I look over the rest of their feedback and I appreciate the good feedback that they gave me, right? You're always going to have, as a writer, Neo, hello, how are you? What are you up to? You're always going to have, as a writer, moments where you feel that way. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But you don't want to take that fight me bitch approach, right? You don't want to message your beta reader and be like, excuse me, but I believe you have done me wrong. That's not going to win you any favors with that beta reader, and it's not gonna help you. Like, if you have to have a moment of screaming in a pillow, have your private minute of screaming in a pillow, but walk away, come back, look at that look at that feedback with an approach of how do I address this? Is this something that needs to be fixed? Is it something that I can fix easily? Is it something that needs changed? I'm absolutely fine with having an ongoing conversation about a note that I made, but I have a little bit of PTSD about people responding by tearing me to pieces about feedback that I gave them and basically writing a whole explanation. Yeah, definitely don't do that. If they were like, oh, well, I did mention that thing in the previous paragraph, was that not clear enough? That leaves room for clarification on both sides and conversation without alienating or being confrontational. Exactly. Take the approach of, hey, can we expand on this? Hey, can you explain to me a little bit more about why you felt this way? Hey, can I run something past you and see if that makes it make more sense to you? I don't get why people would want to argue about your critique. Like, be professional and ask them about the critique and ask questions about the feedback and ask, how can I fix it? Exactly. Have a conversation. And even if you want to say, I didn't think that this was that important, why do you think it's important? Right? Like, maybe something that somebody marked seems very minor to you, but you can always be like, hey, why did that feel like a big deal to you? Why was that something that you felt like I should change? Because if someone's, and I can't state enough, like, if you don't agree with something a beta reader said to you, you don't have to change it. No author has to make changes that they don't want to make. But don't attack your beta readers like it's their fault, right? If you have a sober conversation with your beta reader and you ultimately decide that you don't think that change makes sense, that's fine. But you shouldn't need to justify to your beta reader why that is, and you shouldn't need to go at your beta reader in order to make that decision. Like, have a sober conversation, have some reflection, and make a decision. These are important decisions, and they're not easy decisions to make. Like, sometimes I send feedback to an author, and I'm like, and I send an email, and I'm like, they have some tough decisions to make. And I know they have some tough decisions to make, and I can't make those decisions for them because it's not my story, and I didn't write it. And I don't envy them having to make those decisions. But, at least the people that I, like, edit for, they don't come at me and be like, here's why you're a horrible person. No, don't be sorry for all the extra long messages, Bard. This is an important conversation that we're having right now. And that's why I wanted to take the time to actually address this. It's really helpful to get beta readers' perspective. You're very insightful. Yeah, Bard, I wish you could beta read for me. Starting to write my project after a total of 96 pages of notes. Neo, it sounds like you've got a lot of work ahead of you. I've gotten critique before that I was pretty sure was just misunderstanding, but I just asked for clarification, and it was, but it still ended up being very helpful. Yeah, well, and I'm going to call myself out now, because, I've talked a lot about my experience as, like, reading for other people. I am about to, in August, I'm going to be editing the first book. I'm going to be polishing the first book in my Aravalia Chronicles. I'm going to be doing some of it on stream. Not a lot of it, because I can't get into spoiler territory. This is a project that I've been working on since 2011. And I believe I wrote the first trilogy starting in 2019. And then last year I sent it out to my betas, and, the first two books don't need a lot of changes, but when it came to the third book, my good friend Woof, sent me, this very frank note about one of the characters, who's a character that, he has actually helped me construct, right? So he has a lot of, insight into this particular character. And he left me a very frank note saying that he was disappointed in the story arc for this character. He felt like they got lost in the shuffle. He felt like there was a lot of setup to some kind of conclusion, some kind of decision for this character to make, but that it fell short. It wasn't there. And I got another message from one of my other betas, who I haven't mentioned on stream, who said something similar, where she said there's clearly this romantic subplot going on in the book, but it didn't land for me the way I wanted it to land. There were, once I had the revelation, I couldn't help thinking about all these things that I wanted to be in the book that weren't in the book. And it was a little frustrating to get that note, because these were things I had tried to put in the book. These were things I had tried to do. But when I put the two sets of feedback together, I quickly realized that, one, I had probably, when I wrote the book, I felt like I overwrote the romantic subplot, and so I pared it down when I edited it, and I probably edited it too much. I probably pared it down too much. I cut things that I should have left, right? Which I've done before. It happens. You overthink things, you overcompensate. And when I combined the two feedbacks, I realized that both were correct, that I needed to resolve those issues in order for that particular plot to feel complete. And it's important to me that plot feel complete, because the character in question becomes a major character later in the series. And the decision that they make in book 3 at the end of the first trilogy actually very heavily impacts the state of mind that they are in at the beginning of book 4, where another very important plot happens. So if I had just brushed that feedback aside, or made Wolf feel like he couldn't give me that frank feedback, my book would be the worse for it, because I would have written set up for a plot that I actually failed to properly set up. And my entire series from then on, this is a 15-book series that I'm planning, if I drop the ball in book 3, every book that comes after that is going to suffer from me dropping that ball, right? I need to know that character arc isn't complete, that character arc isn't hitting the way it needs to hit, that revelation isn't coming off the way it needs to come off, because if that doesn't work, if that doesn't snap into place, then everything I'm trying to do that's based on that is gonna fall short. Meg, hello! Welcome to the stream! Thank you so much for the follow! We're talking about beta reading and constructive criticism right now, which we've gone off on quite the tangent, but it's okay, because it's very important. It'll be a long and hard project. I will, or try to be professional. You're not a dummy, Neo, come on. You're very intelligent, and I have every faith in you that you can do this project. I don't think you would have undertaken this if you didn't believe that you could do it. You're challenging yourself to do something new and challenging, and you're going to succeed. I know you will, because you're that kind of person. Gonna be lurking, gonna check on my little one. Thank you for hanging out and chatting with us so much. Please enjoy your lurk. I hope the little one's doing well, and good luck on your stream. If you're writing today, I hope the words go well for you. So I'll get off my soapbox, I promise, but that's my thoughts on constructive criticism and why it's important. And it's not always easy. It's not always easy to swallow someone coming to you and saying, this part of your book didn't work for me. Because you pour hours of your heart and soul into something and you want it to be good. But that person isn't coming to you to say, this didn't work for me as a slight on you. They're trying to help you. They're trying to help you make that book the best that it can possibly be. And if you take that mindset of, this person is trying to help me write a good story, then you can look at it with a bit more distance and a bit more sober thought, and you can hopefully take it to heart. I'm very fortunate in that, I feel like I have cultivated a relationship with my betas where they know they can be very frank with me. And if they find something that they don't think is working, they can say, hey, listen, this isn't working. And here's how it made me feel. And, and they can dump that in my lap and know that I'm not going to be like, well, you jerk. Although it is funny because, again, I know I'm talking about Wolf a lot. Hopefully he doesn't mind. But he wrote a message for me one time that was like, I don't want to be that guy, but you talking about foaling, and foaling is horses, and these are lambs, so it should be lambing. And I sent him a message back, and it was like, how dare you do exactly what I asked you to do? As a joke, of course, which he instantly got. But yeah, it's very important. You're right, Neo. Ego is a bitch. It's very important to appreciate, because in order to give me that feedback and say, this plot isn't working, Wolf had to read 3 entire books, each of which is like 85,000 words long. That is not a small time investment to say, hey, in this one 10-page block, you need to do more stuff. That's a lot of time to point out something that is a relatively small, I mean, larger, it's a bigger error on sort of the scale of, in terms of what needing fixed, but the amount of time investment that it's going to take me to fix that is probably less than the amount of time that it took him to read that and tell me that it existed. So at the very least, appreciate the time that your beta readers are putting in to give you that feedback. Because that one line of feedback that lets you fix your whole novel, that could be 10 hours of effort for them. So, like I said, I'll get off the soapbox, but thank you, actually, Bard and Anne, for asking those questions and getting us on that conversation topic, because it's important. It's an important part of the writing process, understanding how to give and receive feedback. So yeah, what were we talking about? What were we talking about 45 minutes ago? I believe I was mentioning my draft cycle. So I promised I would talk a little bit about what I've been up to, what I've been working on, what I've been writing this year, and what I'm hoping to write this year. I did start out streaming in November, so you guys have been pretty current on some of my projects. Currently, I am editing Beast Wicked Gleam, which is the second book in the Aravalia Chronicles. It's the second trilogy in the Aravalia Chronicles. So books 4, 5, and 6. We've been editing those on stream since March. I also know that there have been books that I really enjoyed overall, but that maybe had a part or two that didn't really work for me. So it's not an indication that you're not doing a great job or that your writing is terrible, just that there are areas that could potentially be improved. You said it. That's exactly it. Like, it doesn't mean your book is bad. It just means, hey, maybe your book would be better if it did a couple extra things. Nobody will read my stuff. I'm my own critic. It's not good. Neil, if I spoke French, I would 100% read your stuff. I'm not going to say please write it in English so that I can read it, though, because that would be unfair. Write in your native language, in the language that makes you happy. But I am sure that your stuff is much better than you're giving yourself credit for. Everyone is their own worst critic. Another reason why beta readers are very important, because you might have a problem with a part of the book and think it's bad, and your betas will be like, no, that part's great. What are you talking about? This is the bad part, and it's the part that you didn't think was bad. That happens to me all the time, too. My betas never worry about the same stuff that I do, so I've learned to just kind of trust that part of the process. I should back up. So at the beginning of the year, when we first, when January happened and I was still streaming, I was writing book 9 of the Aravalia Chronicles. So that's finishing off the 3rd trilogy. I've basically written the first 3 trilogies of this series, which is going to be 5 trilogies long, so 15 books. It's a monster. It wasn't originally supposed to be that long, but Dameron never shuts up. So there you go. Blame him. It was really nice to write the 3rd book because some things in it happened that were really important character development for my main character, pushing him towards realizing some things that he's been running away from a long time. So I really enjoyed writing those. And I can't say I've been enjoying specifically the editing process of books 4, 5, and 6, because this book was a train wreck when I wrote it. But I do like how it's coming out the other side. I'm definitely enjoying how the plot is sort of weaving together. And I'm looking forward to being finished with it, partly so I can send it out to my betas, but also partly because I just kind of want to be done editing for a while. But that's what we're working on right now. We're working on editing this 2nd trilogy. I wrote it last year. I wrote it last year? Yeah, I will have finished it last year. And it feels good to be going back and shoring up a chunk of the story that felt loose and not quite working. So sort of sort of like a sculptor sort of chiseling bits and pieces of an artwork out of the stone. It is slowly taking the shape that I want it to take, and I appreciate that. It's becoming keener and clearer, and I appreciate that. I'll read it and give you feedback, but the feedback will simply be, I don't understand any of this because I don't speak French. There you go. Critique from Bard Owl. Writing it in English is already too hard in French. No, that's what I'm saying, Neo. Write in the language that is most comfortable for you. I'm not going to ask you to write it in English. Absolutely not. My biggest worry about my writing is that it's too boring. Oh, Roaming Witch, please. I am 100% with you. That is what I worry about all the time, too. I'm like, who's going to read this? Who's even going to care? Am I not creating enough tension or giving my characters enough choices? It haunts me every day. I feel this so hard on a cellular level. Can I just tell you that my entire body resonates with that comment? The only thing I can say is if you're feeling like it's too boring, take a look at what the conflicts are, what the tensions are in your story. Sort of try to forget all the rest of the surrounding details and just look at the tension. And remind yourself that depending on the genre you're writing in, like, people read whole stories about whether or not a couple is going to get together. People, watch whole movies about whether or not a couple is going to kiss at the end of the movie, right? So it's not necessary for everything to be about saving the world in order to be interesting. It's more about, have you created a situation that people can identify with? And do you think that the ending that they get will feel satisfying? That's what I try to do when I'm like, who's even going to care about this? But beta readers help with that too, right? Because if someone reads something that you were like, is this boring? And they're like, I was on the edge of my seat the entire time. Then you know that it wasn't boring, right? Fight, 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 kiss, kiss, kiss. Peter, how are you? Welcome to the stream. My biggest issue is I don't think I know how to plot. You know what? I'm gonna be really honest. I think people put too much emphasis on having a plan ahead of time. I say this as someone who outlines all of her big novels and has a plan and tries to follow that plan. You don't need to know everything about the book the first time. If I showed you my outline for books 10, 11, and 12 of the Aravalia Chronicles, if you saw how many notes I have in there that just say something happens, or they go looking for something, or there is mortal peril, there's no specifics in these. It's just like, peril needs to happen here. What is the peril? I don't know. I'll figure it out when I get there. Sometimes you have to trust that your brain knows what it's doing. And I legitimately have gone back through my work to edit and discovered, like, because I leave time between my writing and editing, right? I try to put something on a shelf for a year before I come back to it to give myself time to look at it fresh. I have come back to projects that I put on the shelf with a fresh new idea of how to fix the issues and discovered that I wrote foreshadowing for events that I wasn't planning on having happen. Your brain knows what to do. You just have to get out of the way and let it happen. It sounds insane to me to say that, but I feel like I've done it several times. You will find these random bits of inspiration, and if you just let yourself put them in the book, and then you come back later and you pick up on it, and then you're like, oh, hey, my brain knew what it was doing. I just have to tie this into a bow, right? When you're writing a first draft, the most important thing is to tell as much of the story as you currently know, and as much of the story as you can currently think of, and it's going to be incomplete. It's not going to be the full story or the full picture of the story the first time. That's why you edit. That's why you go back and you look over it, and you add the missing pieces, and you take out the stuff that didn't make sense, and you fix it up. You just have to kind of let it be wrong the first time. When you get to edits, that's when you start to worry about plot, I think. And if you have enough, beats, and if there's enough information, and if that's when you look at the plot graph. But when you're just drafting, go wild. Break all the rules. Do whatever you want. You fix it in post. I had a plan once. There were no survivors. Interesting, Peter. I'm alright, but it's warm and I'm salty today. Oh no! Peter, is there something you need to talk about? My book will be boring for 80% of the reader. You don't know that, Neo. That's an assumption. You don't know that. I understand the mechanics of constructing a plot in the abstract. I can be like, here are some plot points, but then I don't know how to translate those into an actual story. That makes perfect sense. But like I said, I think if you tell all of the parts of the story that you know, then you can look at that, and knowing the mechanics of a plot, you will be able to figure out how to fill in the blanks, I guess is what I'm saying. If you forget about mechanics and just write whatever's in your heart and brain, then you can take all of that mechanical knowledge and push up your glasses and say, ah, yes, I suddenly understand what this plot is missing. But if you worry about it from the start, you might just overthink it too much to actually tell the story, if that makes sense. The thing is at the place with the stuff, and the dudes are doing the actions to prevent the scenario. That's some of my notes. Peter, how did you get a hold of this plot outline? This is plagiarism, and frankly, I will not stand for this blatant thievery of my work. You might want to think that because I bribed the judge. Just unhappy with the heat. I feel you. I know when we were in the UK, almost no place has air conditioning, and I don't know how you survive. I have our AC on today, and if it wasn't for the AC, I would be dying. Overthinking is everyone's kryptonite, Bard. The trick is to get out of the way of your brain. And it's easy to say, and it's so hard to do. And everyone does it differently. Everyone has different ways of tricking their brain into doing what they want it to do, right? I have just sort of kind of learned when to turn off editor brain and just kind of go with the flow. And sometimes I write something and I shake my head and say that was fucking bad, and I just keep typing. You know, other people can't do it that way, and they have other ways of, like, they leave themselves a note, or they cross it out and keep going, or, you know, whatever you need to do to get the story out, really. 113 Fahrenheit on the temp dial on the side of the barn. Wow, Zebra, I hope you're keeping hydrated and cool. What I've noticed is that the first few pages I'll write something that makes no sense. It's like a throwaway joke at the time, but then later on in the story, at the end, I'll somehow accidentally circle around to that throwaway thing I referenced right at the start. It's because your brain knows what it's doing. When I do things like that, it makes me so happy. I feel like that scene in Aladdin when the genie is like phenomenal cosmic powers. Yes, exactly. When you have that keystone moment, that light bulb goes off. It's the best feeling. I hate summer with a fiery passion, and the sun hates me back. Still recovering from a sunburn I got a few weeks ago. Oh no! Analysis of the psychology of God throughout the three main religions. It doesn't sound boring to me, Neo, but I don't speak French, so I'll never get to read it. Yeah, that makes sense. Throughout is the right word, Neo. I have so many brain dumps that have sentences like, somehow she got to get rescued from this tower, but that's future Bard's problem. Bard, again, how did you get a copy of my outline? I literally am gonna find one of them and read it to you, because I can't stress enough to you guys. You guys have seen me finish actual novels on stream, so you know I'm not lying. Let me find one of my notes that is like, something happens. There's gotta be some in here. Actually, let me just do a find something happens. Actually, that's not helping because I have happened in here too many times. I literally have a note that says, a ball, because apparently every one of these needs a ball now. As in, like, a fancy dress ball. That's literally a note in my outline. This is a note as well. Domrin joins a manhunt in progress. This should relate to an incident earlier in the book. Cool. Hopefully I said what that incident is somewhere. Not a golf ball. No, a ball, a fancy ball. That's normal. It hit 122 last year. Can't wait to see if we get that and another sandstorm. Oh no, I hope not. So far I've been solving the problem by just writing the things. Problem solved. By just not writing things. That's not a good way to solve the problem, Bard. Yes, the incident. Yeah, exactly. Here's one. Possibly another scene here. No, I don't even know if this scene is going to exist. Possibly another scene here involving character, and the consequences of the whole other character fiasco. I'm censoring this, so no spoilers. This is a major victory for character. And sets up for the next step in the grand plan, because there's more plan. I don't know what the grand plan is. I just know that there's another step, apparently. Literally all I did was take out the character names. That's what the note says. That is a plan in the novel for what I'm writing. Character is such a cool person, right? I'm trying to find one of the ones where it literally says mortal danger. I have some that say end in mortal danger, end the scene in mortal danger, without specifying what the mortal danger is. Oh, there's a... This is an interesting note. Crescent is free for something he's been contemplating for a long time. Revenge. And through his recent contact with Silkfoot, he knows the pirate is up to something. He wants in. Parentheses. Details? Question mark? I assume this will somehow play into Silkfoot's plan. What the hell is that? This is literally what it says. This is literally the notes that I've written for this novel. I'm not sure what the next step is. Somehow, ultimately, Silkfoot's plans tie in with something I can't say because spoiler. But there has to be more to it than that. But in some way, this stuff needs to start coming together around about here. Literally a note. Literally a note that I've written for myself. Make this make sense. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is, but it has to make sense by chapter 32 of this novel. So just in case you guys are like, yeah, Megan has everything figured out before she sits down to write. She knows what she's doing. She's super good. These are my notes. My notes are, what the hell is that? And what are the details? And maybe this will make sense at this point. There you go. I hope maybe this helps you guys realize that you can just write whatever. You can just write whatever shit. It doesn't have to make sense. Coincidentally, just go through the balls was apparently my high school girlfriend's motto. Interesting. You're censoring the names, but my notes literally just say main character or love interest. I mean, this is a book 9. My characters better have names by book 9. I'm just saying. Character can be an asshole sometimes. The grand plan, take over the galaxy, but not until we have had our coffee. Gotta have the coffee. I don't like character. I prefer character and character to character. I just think character is awful. Details question mark is such a mood, right? Literally, I can't stress enough. I literally have a note that just says details. I think it's actually question mark explanation point. Oh no, it is just question mark. Details question mark. Some of these, like, literally, there's just some vague character development here. Like, it literally says, it's telling that character is in some ways circling back to his original behavior patterns. We see this come up time and again. Character may have changed his life, but he's still the same person despite his earlier fears. And while he's generally a good person who does good things, he's afraid to cross into morally gray area whenever he feels it's warranted. He's not afraid to cross into morally gray area whenever he feels it's warranted. Most specifically when someone he truly cares about has been wronged in some fashion. This doesn't tell me anything about what happens in this scene. It just tells me why the scene is here. What is this character gonna do? I don't know, but these are the reasons he's gonna do it. Literally a note for this scene. I was today years old when I noticed the portal turret on your shelf in the background. Yeah! Are you still there? Also, I just got this Enterprise from Ghost yesterday. I stole it from him. A student bought it for him and it's mine now. Look at this. Bam. 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 Haha. I'm way too happy about having that thing. You should read my notes. Everything is detailed. I can't leave a note if I don't put my thoughts on it without detail. I mean, these are as much details as I have about what's happening in this novel. So I'm going through this to prove to you guys that you don't have to have a grand plan at the beginning. You can literally just be like, something action-y needs to happen in this scene, and then write something action-y, and that's the plot now. This one, chapter 35, 2-part action scene because it's more exciting. Literal note. An actual update with character and character. Probably this should be lighthearted since everything else is going to hell. The two of them are actually having a good time despite the dangers they encounter, though perhaps there is some hint near the end of the scene that they have stumbled onto something related to the shift in magical currents. What's gonna happen in that scene? Fuck if I know, but it's gonna be lighthearted until the end. Most common note in my draft, I hate this. Saturday morning adventures with character and character continue, but at this point it's starting to become clear that something is really wrong. After some hesitation, they consider whether to return home or check things out, but it seems to make more sense to return home with information, so they check things out and trouble arises. Possibly something life-threatening they have to deal with. Question mark? That is literally the whole notes for that scene. Do you know what's going to happen in that scene? Because I don't. Mortal danger, probably. What is that mortal danger going to be? I don't know. Anyway, I hope that illustrates to you how much you don't need to know everything before you write a story. How am I today? I am feeling much better today, Peter. I think I still sound a bit, gunky, but I'm actually feeling pretty good. My throat's getting dry from how much I'm talking, but that's cool. And I'm taking some time off this weekend. Why not try immortal danger? Well, if there's no peril of death, it's generally less intense. I have a note from one of my brainstorming sessions that's just like, this character should maybe die. I have notes like that, Bard. I do. I have notes like that. Cheers, Peter. Here's a hydrate. There was a character, I won't say which one, through the entire... We were talking earlier about the Celestial Serenade that I published this year. These 3 books that I'm putting out this year, the 3 books I'm putting out this year, there's a character in these books whose survival was up in the air until, like, through several drafts. I had a note saying, should this character die, in several places. I'm not going to tell you whether or not that character survived, but it was very uncertain. Their fate, ultimately, what it was not determined until very late in the process. So, yeah, it's fine. It's fine to not know what's happening in the first draft. It's fine for the first draft to contradict itself, or to not make sense, or to be all over the place. That's what first drafts are for. I can't stress enough. I just had a weird perspective moment because up until now I thought that shelf was a full-size bookshelf that was just further away, and you just reached over and picked something up off of it and my brain short-circuited. I'm sorry, this is literally right behind me, right here. This is that part of the desk right here. I'm a control freak. That's not necessarily a bad thing when it comes to being detail-oriented and writing detail-oriented things. What I've also discovered is that I cannot write notes on the PC, so I make a billion handwritten notes, but then I never type them up. I used to do that too, Peter. I switched to a fully digital system because it was getting difficult to manage. Writing, is it nyctotropist? I feel like I say it, you tell me how to say it every time you tell me how to say it right, and I say it wrong again. Welcome, though. Welcome to the stream. You're gonna tell me how to say your name again, and I'm gonna forget. I think the last time you told me I put the wrong emphasis on the wrong syllable, but now I can't remember which is the right syllable to put the emphasis on. My notes are much different because it's not fiction. To me, a note is a reminder, not just an idea. I mean, you're writing a different kind of story, Neo. That makes sense. Obviously, much of the advice that I give for writing fiction won't help with writing nonfiction. I always write flash fiction because it's easy to just write basically what I want the story to be in one sitting without a lot of unknowns. But Bard, what if I told you that you could write a novel across multiple sittings without having to know what's going on in that novel until after you wrote it? Because you can totally do that. People do that all the time. It's called pantsing, and it works for lots of people. And I wrote the first 4 novels in the Eternity's Empire series that way. Before ever writing down a single outline of what was happening in that series, I wrote 4 books in it. So you can do that. Nyctotropist. Emphasis here. Ah. Ah, okay. I think I see what I'm doing wrong. I said it nyctotropist, but it's nyctotropist, right? Or did I do it in the reverse? Hello, Nick Emphasis here. That's what your new name is now, Nick Emphasis here. Oh my goodness. So I'm going to probably hop AFK and take another quick break here. T, like in the Nights That Go Knee. Nyctotropist. Right, and I said ta the first time. Nicty. T. Like knee. Give us a shrubbery, or we shall knee at you again. Your father smelled of elderberries. Can we tell that I am a big fan of Monty Python? I'm going to take a quick break because I want to talk about... I've talked about what I've been up to, sort of, but there's not much more to say. We've been working on the Aravalia Chronicles. We're going to keep working on the Aravalia Chronicles. I'm going to finish editing book 6, and then we're actually going to write books 10, 11, and 12, which sounds insane to me. I'm going to be writing those on stream from September through December. I'm going to get the first 2 books of that done, hopefully by December, and then next year, in January and February, we'll finish up book 12. That's the outline that I was just reading some excerpts from. But I'm going to be starting a brand new project, a brand new series, now that I've finished writing Eternity's Empire. I'm I'm going to be starting a brand new series. And I'm going to be starting it on stream. I'm going to be going through, I'm going to be doing character notes. I'm going to be doing outlining. I'm basically going to show my whole process for the first novel on stream. And I'm going to be starting that hopefully in July. So what I'm going to do is take a quick break, and then I'm going to come back and talk a little bit about that project and the setup for that project, because that's something, that's something we're going to be working on here on stream in a bit. And that's the last thing that I have like planned to talk about, but we can of course go on more tangents. Change your name to Writing NYC? That's totally different. Your mother was a hamster and your father smells of elderberries. Now go away, or I shall taunt you a second time. Thank you so much for all your help and encouragement. It definitely makes me feel a lot better about trying to write something longer, but in smaller time chunks. I'm happy to help, Bard. This is why I'm here. This is why I started doing this, is because I want to help other writers with the stuff that I struggled with. Because I didn't have anybody to tell me that it was okay for my first draft to be a fucking mess. I just kind of had to figure that out for myself. Nothing to do with New York. Yeah. That's why I said Writing NYC would mean something else. Or writing Nick. Bring us a shrubbery. Sorry, now all I can think of is bring us a shrubbery. So yes, I wish that I had somebody to tell me these things when I was starting out. And somebody to help me realize that I didn't have to have my shit all together in order to write a novel. That the process can be messy and the draft can be messy, and you can spend 4 drafts getting it to work, because no one's gonna see those first 4 drafts except you. No one's gonna know how messy it was except you, right? So by all means, like, let your brain meander through whatever it's gonna meander through. Write your story in chunks if that's how it works for you, and then put it together afterwards. Even it out. Make it make sense later. It's fine to just write a bunch of ideas down, and sometimes in the first draft they conflict and they make no sense. I literally just, in a scene the other day, I cut a line of dialogue because I was like, this opens the potential for a type of magic that I don't actually want to exist in this world. So I'm just going to delete all mention of it and decide that it doesn't exist, because I just don't want to deal with the mechanics of it. You can do that. You can just change the whole fabric of your universe because you don't feel like dealing with it. You get to be that choice. You're the god of this world. Look at me today, writing a serious book and trying to be professional at it. It's because Megan supported me. Neo, I'm so happy that you decided to write a book. I'm so happy that you've enjoyed writing. I know you only started writing around the time I started streaming, and I'm glad that you've taken to it. What does the end sound kind of like tropic, but with an ST instead of a C? Oh, because, this was explained before that they changed the end of the word to give it a slightly different meaning. It's based on a real word, but slightly modified. I can't even kills character. You can do that too if you want. Alright, I'm going to take a quick BRB, and then I might actually switch views. So I can show you, I have just a little bit of a setup of what I'm hopefully going to be working on trying out on stream. So let me just, I have to blow my nose again. I don't want to do it on camera. So I will BRB and we'll talk about that. I'm up here now in this corner. Hooray. Nyctotropism. All that's changed is the last leather. I said leather. The last leather? Why is my brain like this? Oh my goodness. I was like, I'm gonna be so clever. I'm gonna try to say everything right. And then I said leather instead of letter. Oh my goodness. Okay, so switch views so I can talk to you guys about my new project. So because I finished with Eternity's Empire, I'm going to be starting a brand new project. I'm going to hopefully release the first book next year. Words are hard. Like, way harder than they should be. They trick your tongue and you think you've got it. You're like, in your brain, you're like, I'm saying everything great. And then the stuff coming out of your mouth is actually like, plee, blah, blah, blah. And it doesn't sound right at all. Sorry, there was less coffee in my cup than I thought. So I just was like, where's the coffee? Why isn't the sip happening? All right. So, because I'm finishing up Eternity's Empire, I obviously have space to start working on a new thing, and I will hopefully be publishing the first book in this series next year. I'm not entirely sure how many books are going to be in this series. I think it's going to be between 4 and 6. Hopefully it'll be either 4 or 6. I'm not sure. I'm just not sure yet. What are words, right? I don't even know. Just because I can put them on paper does not mean I can talk. Thank you. Like, sometimes I'm like, I talk to people and I'm like, yeah, I'm a writer. And then I like trip over all my words and I'm like, in the back of my head, I'm like, they don't believe you're a writer. They don't believe that you're literate. I'm like, ah. So this is going to be my new project. This is NovelPad. Let me actually do that for a hot second. This is a program that I was just introduced to. It is a browser extension. There is a monthly fee, but I've been given a trial to give it a whirl here on stream with my new project. I know that some of the streamers here on Twitch use this. I know Supernatural Writer speaks very highly of NovelPad, and also Hannah Lee Kidder, who's the one who turned me onto it. And I've talked a little bit to the NovelPad developers in their Discord, so they seem to be trying to create something that is specifically designed for writers to write manuscripts. And I've seen a lot of people say that if they aren't usually outliners, and if they also have problems like with ADHD or with time management and that kind of stuff, that this program helps them. I don't know much about it yet. I'm going to be trying it out here in July, and we're going to see. But I just wanted to give you guys a little bit of a preview. This is Everyone's Child. This is the project that I'm going to be starting after I finish Eternity's Empire. And I'm going to be going through this. Let me actually just move the display here so that you can see what any of this looks like. I'm gonna be going through this on stream when I do my outline, and so I've just I've done a very basic skeleton sort of jot down of all the things that I need to actually work on when I'm doing the planning, and so that's what this is. Finished my first writing prompt, so now we wait. Oh, what are we waiting for, Zebra? I have a question, and it's many questions in one. Being that you are a married lady with a husband, at what point in a project does Mr. Pepper, for want of a better term, get involved, and what input does he have? Do you tell him the whole plot? Does he offer thoughts? Or does he wait until it's finished and read it? Or does he wait until it's finished? So Mr. Pepper is not in-depthly involved in my writing process, mostly because Mr. Pepper is very busy with his own job and his own projects. So this is not meant to be a judgment on Mr. Pepper whatsoever, disclaimer. My husband is very supportive of my work and in fact makes what I do possible. I couldn't sit here and work on novels all day if it weren't for him. So take that on top of all else. Calling Ghost Mr. Pepper from now on, so thanks for that. Yes. Mr. Pepper. Excuse me, Mr. Pepper. But Mr. Pepper, the primary role that Mr. Pepper plays in my writing is actually one of the most important roles, which is he stands there and lets me just talk at him. If I'm working through an idea, if I'm frustrated with something, if I just want to like brag about something I feel particularly good about, if I'm just kind of like playing around with a new something or whatever, he basically lets me just blab at him. He lets me talk about whatever I want to talk about. Sometimes it's like 5 minutes of me being like, hey, this cool thing happened in my novel. Sometimes it's an hour of me being like, and I don't know what I'm doing, and I have this with this character and that with that character, and what do you think about this? But then I keep talking before he gets a chance to answer. So really what I'm saying is Mr. Pepper qualifies for sainthood. I do the same thing with Ronnie. I use him as a soundboard that has a built-in oh cool feature. Yeah, exactly. And it probably sounds like I'm being sarcastic and saying that and saying that that's how he helps me, but it is actually helpful. This isn't sarcasm. This isn't me having a sass at my husband. The fact that he just lets me stand there and blab at him for hours and say, this is what I'm thinking about doing, or I had this idea, or I'm frustrated because this, that, and the other thing. And sometimes if I'm frustrated, by the time I've finished yakking at him, I've figured out my problem, right? And he says like 5 words. Sometimes he does give me input, he does give me feedback, he does suggest things or make comments that help me work through my thoughts. It's actually very important to have that because sometimes you need to just be able to say stuff out loud. Sometimes I have these conversations out loud to myself, but it's always nice to have a person that I can talk to that stuff about, and he's very understanding about it. Mr. Pepper does express a desire to read my work and has read some of it. He read Dreamers Do Lie and Life Is But a Dream and enjoyed them very much. He didn't really read The Celestial Serenade. It kind of wasn't his jam. He has expressed an interest in reading Aravalia, but he hasn't had time. So when he is able to, he reads my work and gives me feedback. During the beta reading process, I always include him as an initial beta reader in my series. I offer the books to him in case he wants to read them. When he's unable to beta read for me, he usually just picks up my books and reads them whenever he has a chance after they're finished. Ghost doesn't actually read a lot for pleasure anymore. He goes through phases where he does, but usually he's just really busy and he doesn't actually read a lot. So, which is not, again, not a criticism of him. He does his best. But the biggest role that he plays is letting me say, you know, whatever I want to say about my projects and just, you know, not being like, hey, shut up because I don't care about this, which he could have every right to say. I've literally been in the middle of telling Ronnie something that I was having trouble figuring out, and while explaining it, I was just like, oh, I can just blah, blah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's funny how the writer brain works, because that's what you do. That's why, actually, if you know the thing about the rubber ducks, right? That's the whole thing about the rubber ducks, is that programmers usually have a rubber duck that sits on their desk, and if they run into a problem, they can talk through the problem with the rubber duck, and usually they figure out what the problem is while they're explaining it to the duck. It's the same with writers. I don't know why it works, but it does. I do this with my teenagers, and sometimes they offer valuable insights, and other times it's just nice to have sounding boards who like my writing and love to listen to my crazy new ideas. Exactly. It's just nice to have someone who's like, yeah, I don't mind if you talk about this. I need to get an army of rubber ducks. I feel the same way, Bard. When I was in relationships, I found it helpful to just word vomit projects, but then I'm paranoid and worry about the relationship ending and that person going off and using my ideas in my projects, so I normally keep the endings a secret. I mean, that's fair. I would hope that somebody wouldn't just run off with your idea, because of course you would find out, right? If someone runs off with your idea, you're gonna find out about it eventually. I don't think that's an unreasonable fear. I have often worried about, you know, people taking my ideas. I think the more you do this kind of stuff, the less you kind of worry about that, because you realize that, one, if someone steals your idea, you're eventually going to find out about it. Like, they're not going to be able to hide it. And two, I think most people are more interested in their own ideas than your ideas, right? Creativity is transitive, and people get inspired by, you know, other people and like things all the time. But for the most, I mean, obviously there are people out there that do plagiarize and do steal ideas, and they're horrible people, and they should be called out for what they do. But I think for the most part, most people want to have their own creativity, like they want to indulge their own creativity rather than stealing yours. But you would know. If it ever happened, you would know. And if you confronted them about it, like, they would know. So I think that keeps most people from trying that shit. But I also don't think it's unreasonable to only share parts of your ideas because you don't want someone else to take them. It happens so much in radio. I was at a fake pitch meeting once with someone from the industry, and I pitched an idea about camera crew following what happens on trains and working on the railways. The man was like, so you just want camera crews to film in case something happens in a snarky way? And I was like, yes. A year or so later, there was a program on television called Inside Central Station. I'm sorry, Peter. I can see how in radio, though, radio and TV are different arenas. And unfortunately, I think probably less savory people are probably more commonly encountered. Date people who can't write. Or who don't want to. Anyway, I want to introduce you guys to this. Just basically, there's nothing in any of these yet. I've basically just written who, like, these... some of these are actual names, the first three. These characters don't even have names yet. They're just concepts for characters. I also have some group characters in here, such as this is like a cult. And this is a council of mages, just so I can fill out some details about them and reference them. And then I haven't actually gotten a chance to do much with the locations yet, because I don't know where the story is taking place. Actually, I just thought of another one, which is... I should add this so I remember to do it. There we go. So this is a very, Wolf, we talked about you so much during the beta reading part, and I said all good things, but I don't know how much of it you heard, but I talked about you a lot. Everyone's gonna want you as a beta reader, just so you know. Yeah, I talked about all the amazing notes that you give me, and all the sass that you give me, and how you're not afraid of sassing me, which is good. And how great you make my stuff because you aren't afraid to call me out. I had a... There's a VOD. You can listen to me. I mean, you've experienced it all. You were there when the notes happened, but you can rewatch the VOD. So yeah, so this is just a basic framework. I'm gonna be filling this out on stream. I'm gonna be filling out details about the characters and the locations, and then there's this outline view where we're gonna actually outline a novel, and then I'm gonna write the novel, and it's hopefully gonna be cool. I'll be starting this in July. We're gonna be doing this on stream. I promised I would share a bit more of my process, a bit more insight into sort of what it looks like when I'm actually starting a project, since this is the first time I'm starting a project since I started streaming. So we're gonna be doing that. Hopefully you guys will enjoy that. Hopefully it won't be super boring. So that's something to look forward to. I'm going to be hopefully writing the first book and editing the first book of Everyone's Child in the second half of the year. That's one of my goals. So hopefully you'll get to see a fair amount of that on stream. Obviously, I will try to keep the major spoilers off stream so that there will be a reason for you guys to buy the book and read it afterwards. But hopefully all of this stuff that we're talking about... Oh, well, if I also read some notes from my books 10, 11, and 12 of Aravalia Chronicles, where it talks about how I don't know what's going to happen in those books. I got her to name a character Bob. I did name a character Bob for Woof. I did. He's the security troll. But yeah, hopefully you guys will enjoy that. If it's super boring, I won't ever do it again. But if it's insightful and you enjoy it, then I can keep giving you some more insight into my process as I start new projects. You guys might be like, hey, how far in the future do you plan your projects? Probably until the day I die, but... Currently my biggest project, we've talked a lot about it already, is the Aravalia Chronicles. I'm going to be writing books 10, 11, and 12 of that this year, and next year I'm going to be writing the last 3 books in it, books 13, 14, and 15. After that, I'm actually going to swing back to the Celestial Serenade. My characters audaciously decided, is that the right word? They decided that there's more to the story. I actually have notes for a missing chunk of story. So there's actually going to be a sequel trilogy to the 9 books of that already. I'm going to be writing that, possibly on stream. That might be interesting. So I'm going to be revisiting that series a bit. There is an ending for this series. The ending that's written for it is... It works as an ending. You don't need to know... You don't need to have the last 3 books to have a complete experience. But there might be more of it. So if you end up really loving them, hey, there's possibly more of that coming in the future. See, I told you, beta reader extraordinaire. How can it be boring? It's impossible. For my stuff to be boring? I mean, Neo, you think your stuff is boring. I think my stuff is boring. I think your stuff is way more interesting than my stuff. Your stuff is real. Mine's all fake. I make it up. This is all imaginary. Your stuff is at least based on tangible, real-world things. So yeah, so that's going to happen. After I write that trilogy, I also am tentatively throwing around an idea for a series called Ghost Path, which is sort of a paranormal fantasy. I don't want to say too much about it because it's very far in the future right now, but it's kind of like society always has this concept of things getting lost and going somewhere. Like when you can't find your left sock, it's because it fell into Narnia or some ether world. So Ghost Path is kind of about this this liminal space where things go when they're lost, including people. So those are my big projects that are on the horizon, very far in the horizon. After I finish Everyone's Child, which will be between 4 and 6 books, hopefully, depending on how much story there ends up being. We'll find that out when we outline the first book, hopefully. We'll start to get an idea of what shape that series will look like. After I finish that, I have an idea for a series called The Backwards Bar and Grill, which doesn't sound like anything I write, but it is a side story, a sort of offshoot for the Celestial Serenade universe. It's not going to feature the main characters, but it is going to take place in the same galactic empire. And it's sort of a heist redemption story, sort of about a young girl swept up in a crazy tumultuous world, but given a second chance, but in space. So those are some things that are very far in the horizon that I'm sort of playing around with for the future. And if you guys enjoy seeing me do these streams, if you guys enjoy watching me tip-tap, clicky-clack, if you enjoy having me yak your ears off about my process and writing and all of this stuff, then hopefully someday you'll get to see me do all that stuff on stream. We love watching Megan streams. Aw, Leader, how are you? Welcome to the stream. Real stuff is boring? I don't think that's true, Neo. I think real stuff is probably more interesting than fantasy stuff. Is there ghost banging? The people in the story aren't ghosts necessarily, so I don't know that there is ghost banging, but it's very conceptual right now, so it's not off the table. I can't say yes, but I can't say no definitively. It's about Ghost Pepper taking a nice relaxing walk. Yeah, totally. How am I? I am doing quite well. I'm feeling better. My sinuses are still not quite entirely behaving, but I probably sound worse than I feel at this point. So, ghost banging, lol. So, yeah. That is kind of like all of the stuff that I think I've covered pretty much what I've done, what I'm planning to do for this year. If you guys have any more questions, comments, if you want to pick my brain a little bit more, I'm perfectly happy to stick around. I still have some coffee to finish. So I'm perfectly happy to stick around, yak your guys' ears off some more. If you guys have anything you're interested in knowing about. I can show off my little enterprise again that I stole from Ghost. He came home with a box of student gifts yesterday, and this was in it. It lights up, dude. And I was like, do you want this? And he was like, no. And I was like, can I have it? And I was already like halfway out the room. And he was like, yes. So I have it now. And it sits on my... It's probably not going to stay where I have it right now. I'll probably move it to a better location. But I'm very happy. Original series Star Trek Enterprise. Very cool. I'm sad that the warp nacelles don't light up, but the saucer section does. What coffee am I drinking? I am drinking Folgers Mocha Swirl coffee today. So it's basically like hot chocolate, but coffee. It's not one of our highest quality coffees. It's sort of a for fun drink. And I thought it would be a good one to drink on stream here today. I looked on the internet and analysis of religion is kind of taboo, so my hope of finding a publisher is low. I mean, I think that's changing, but, you know, you can always publish it yourself, Neo. I don't know why I went super squeaky there, but I did. Up to now, have you primarily used Word to write your books? Yes. I have primarily, almost exclusively, for a while I used OpenOffice to write my books, but I find that Word's styles are a little bit easier to deal with. I pretty much up to this point, I have done everything in Word and OneNote. I do my note-taking and outlining in OneNote. I create a wiki-style document for myself, and then I do all of my writing and editing in Word. It's a little bit more, I do my formatting and as well for all my publications in there as well. It's a little bit more labor intensive because you can get programs like Scrivener and there's another one that someone was mentioning, Vellum, I think. You can get programs like that which will actually let you like drag and drop chapters so that you don't have to like manually copy and paste like I do. But I feel like for me, Word has always just done what I need it to do. It has all the features I need. It's just a matter of sort of finding them and learning how to do them. You don't need an expensive program to do it. But if you find something that you like that works for you, and you want to pay for it, like, go for it. I'm going to give Novelpad a try because it has a few features I'm really interested in. One is that if you put a character or a location details in and then go to that character like tab, it will actually pull up all the scenes that character is in. I'm really interested in that because that's something Word can't do. So it sort of has like a search engine built into it. I'm really interested in seeing how that works, and how the outline pane works, and if I can do like my outlining notes on there. but I can't say too much about the program yet because I haven't used it. I do know Supernatural uses it, and Domrin 5000 Scenes. You're not wrong. So I'd be super interested to see how you use OneNote. I recently tried figuring out, well, let me pull it up and open something that's not spoilery, and I can show you how I use it. I have Scrivener, but I like the idea of being able to add notes ideas to OneNote from my phone literally anywhere. Yeah. Hang on. What else have I missed? Have to write it. That's true, Neo. You have to finish writing it first. Luckily, religion analysis isn't as taboo as it once was. Exactly. I think that's changing. I think people are being more open to that kind of stuff. And still lurking. Glad to hear it. I hope if you're writing that it's going well. Did I miss anything else? Supernatural. It's almost like when we say her name, she appears. Yeah, we were just peeking at NovelPad. I'm going to be using that in the near future. So let me just pull up here. Actually, maybe it would be easier if I just move the display again. Let's do that. So here you can see, this is my OneNote. On the side here, I have notebooks for each of my projects. I even did create an Everyone's Child one prior to setting things up in NovelPad, just so that, because I didn't have access to it until a few days ago. But here you can see for each of my projects, I have a setup. It's basically the same for each of them. I use Word like a noob. I've never tried Scrivener, and I know a lot of people really, really like it, but I've never tried it. I'm afraid to move on from Stone and Chisel. I feel you. Once I find something that works for me, I never want to change it. I'm actually using a 2007 version of Word. So I basically am using a Stone and a Chisel. This is even an older version of OneNote, but the newer version does all the same things. It just looks slightly different. Okay, so this is how I set my stuff up. You can see, so along the side here, I have notebooks for each of my different projects. You can see some of my projects that were finished. I even have a tab for the D&D campaign that I'm going to be running at some point. And then at the top here, I have a places tab. So this is all of the locations that are in my novel. I have a people tab for all of the people who are in the novel. And then I have a tab for each of the books, right? So in this case, these are all trilogies. So Once Upon a Dream is books 1, 2, and 3. The Beast Wicked Gleam is books 4, 5, and 6. Visions Unlike They Seem is books 7, 8, and 9, which we were writing earlier in the year. Beyond the Moon's Beams is 10, 11, and 12, which we were just talking about. And Frozen Within a Scream is books 13, 14, and 15, which are just vague, nebulous concepts in my brain right now and have literally no notes. Also, because this is funny, if I switch over here, you can see this is my notes for the new trilogy of Symphony of Celestial Serenade. Because I'm furious with my characters. And then if I move this around a little bit, you can see, so if I go to my places tab, you can see along the side here, I have a page for each of the different places. And then for Aravalia, I have, this is a kingdom that is in the series. I have come up with all of my details for it. So I have races, ethics, and moral values, what constitutes like a family unit. So there's some cultural, traditional stuff here. Government, social standing, ranks and respectful titles, so that I can keep track of them. Science and technology, medicine, communication, transportation, trade, military, religion, and current state is like my notes on what's going on in the story at the time. And every time I need to update for a book, like if I need to add a place or a person or more information about what's going on in that current state of that place, I just come in between drafts and add more notes in here. Are the links at the top essentially bookmarks? Yes. If I click on ranks and respectful titles, it will snap to ranks and respectful titles. And then if I just go back to the top, and if I go to ethics and moral values, they will literally snap to those places. This is OneNote, yeah. 07 was pretty great, yes. LibreOffice I've heard of, not tried. I believe it's open source, isn't it, Zebra? I have not tried Nimble Writer or heard of it. 2016 isn't so bad either. Yeah, I have a 2007 version of Word because I got it as a student, dating myself, and it's never stopped working. The license still works, so it's what I use. Someday it'll quit on me and I'll have to update to a newer version, but it's what I got. Microsoft Office is free if you just don't pay for it. I might need to try something like this. This is OneNote. It's part of the Office suite. But you can actually use the latest version of OneNote for free as part of like the student package for Word. It's like the one Word program that you can get access to without needing to pay. And you can actually use the online version and have access to it on the cloud. Mine's not on the cloud because I use an older version. I have to create this manually. It doesn't create it for me. I have something similar for people if we go look at Dahmer, the main character in the Aravalia Chronicles. I have, information on him, and then like if I click on something, it will snap to it. So, but I have to create this manually. It's the same here. I have to create this manually, this table of contents. If I have one complaint about OneNote, it's that if I copy this, because I start with a different outline, right? If I copy that, you can see all my red notes there. If I copy this onto a new page for the next edit, I have to redo all of the links. So that is a little bit of a quibble that I have with it, but it's still very good for organization. And then I have this little minor characters tab, and this is just a table of all of the minor characters. I actually need to update this. It's not currently up to date. But I have a list of all the minor characters, what chapter you first see them in, what chapter you've last seen them in, who they are, so that I can keep track of people. Clip everything. Well, if you know most of this stuff already, you just ignore the prompt. I've ignored the OneNote startup prompt for at least a decade. Interesting. I didn't know that. That is good to know. I use LibreOffice as it's free, and it works like Microsoft, along with being able to read Microsoft documents. Yeah, I think LibreOffice is kind of the newer version of what OpenOffice used to be. OpenOffice is still a thing, but I think some of the people who developed OpenOffice went on to make LibreOffice, which is supposed to be sort of better kept, up to date. I haven't tried it, but I've heard good things about it. Along with being able to read Microsoft documents for the Kindle, I use WPS Office, which I will talk with Libre and some MS. Nice. Neo, if handwriting your notes works for you, then it's fine. You don't need to do digital. I use Android and Linux as primaries and Windows on the side. It's nice to have utilities which can chat with one another. Yes, the type of PC that you use matters too, because I know with Mac, a lot of people who are on Macs use Scrivener because it's easier for them because Office works differently on the Mac as well. So if you're using, depending on what platform you're using, that might also affect what program you want to use, because some might work better on your platform than other. I use Windows. I hate Windows, but I use Windows. It's what I've always used. So I'm set up for Windows. I have multiple documents. I just remembered to go back and forth between. This would probably streamline things. Yeah, exactly. So I have, I think I've shown this on stream before, but when we actually go into, this is the same story. Cheers, Neo. Here's a hydrate. Bard, why do I hate Windows? I could do an entire 10-hour stream on why I hate Windows. We'll start with the fact that it's bullshit. The marketing model is bullshit. It's extortive. You don't actually own Windows, you own a license to use Windows to start. So we'll start with that. We'll start with the fact that it imprints itself on your hardware so that if you change your hardware, it'll start to give you shit about upgrading. We'll talk about how Windows Update has destroyed my computer on multiple occasions, but you can't turn it off. You're forced to have the updates shoved down your throat, whether or not they're going to work for your PC. I have spent hours upon hours unupdating my previous computers, to try and unbreak them. And it's just every time they make a new version of Windows, it's uglier, it's slower, and they take away more of the customization that used to make Windows good. That's the short version. If you would like the 10-hour version, that'll have to be another stream. I was just curious. I don't disagree, but I was wondering if there's specific... There are a lot of reasons. There's a lot of specific reasons. I could go on. Auto updates, can't cancel auto update. The auto update thing really pisses me off, because when I was on my laptop, like every time Windows Update ran, it would break my sound. And I'm not exaggerating. Every time Windows updated, I had to fix my sound. It was the most annoying fucking thing. I actually broke Windows Update on my laptop so it couldn't run anymore. It was the best thing that ever happened. You can't update Windows on that computer. You can still use that computer. You can't update Windows on it, but the sound works. Microsoft is the devil. I agree. I don't like Mac either. I'm not an Apple fan. I have disdain for Apple for many of the same reasons. I don't like their corporate model. I don't like the way they lock down their products. I don't like their, I can't think of the word right now, but I don't like their model for how they, proprietary. I don't like the proprietary model. Open source all the way. If I could get away with using Linux, I would use Linux all the time, but there are some things I need Windows for, so I use Windows. Apple is a lesser demon. I mean, that depends on who you ask. Bard, thank you for those salty bits. I appreciate it. Didn't mean to kick the hornet's nest. I actually have a background in IT, so I have very nuanced opinions on IT-related things. This is all the short version. But I'm a very, very pro-open source and very anti-proprietary short version. Lesser of two evils is still evil. Fair point. I do actually use Apple products now. I do have an iPad. I used to hate Apple, like, even more than I hated Windows, but Windows has earned a lot of my ire lately. I'm kind of at the point where I'm like, if it works for you, you know, whatever, use it. But open source all the way. I really hope open source is the way of the future. CPM for the win? I'm not sure what that means. But anyway, just to show you the rest of this organizational process. Windows is but I just won't use anything Apple. I mean, yeah. I think it kind of depends on what you've used, right? If you grew up with Apple, if you're comfortable with Apple, you're going to prefer Apple. If you grew up with Windows, you're going to prefer Windows, even though both of them are kind of headed in the same direction in terms of how stupid hard they're getting to use or customize or whatever. Same, like if you switch to using Android primarily, you're going to prefer Android in the future because you're going to, hopefully, they're going to keep innovating the way they started innovating and not taking away the features that you enjoyed, right? I'm not going to say, like, I don't necessarily even have an opinion anymore on which I think is best. I just have things that I hate. But anyway, if we go into, this is my actual folder for this novel. The notes is actually where my OneNote notes are. And so in each of these folders, I have the current draft for that book, plus previous drafts. So every time I do a new draft, I back up the older draft. And so this is where my actual manuscript is. This is where I actually do all of the work on the writing and editing. And then all of my notes are in the OneNote, right? So it's two locations, essentially. I have Word for the manuscript, and I have OneNote for the organization. And for me, it really did, because I used to be the same. I used to have like 20 different, Word documents, and the information was spread out all over the place, and it wasn't easy to navigate. And so having it this way has really streamlined things for me. I'm interested in NovelPad because I like that idea of like going to my Dahmerin page and having all of the scenes for Dahmerin pop up, because that will help me in some ways. But I don't know how effective that is actually going to be for me until I get there. I like having this. This is sort of like my quick reference. So I can say, oh, I need to know when this thing happened. I can skim quickly through my outline, find that event, and then I know which chapter, so I don't have to spend hours and hours scrolling through my manuscript to find things. I've tried to make it as easy as possible for me to find the information that I need, because when you're writing a long series, there are like 3 million things to keep track of. And I was getting to the point where I was spending hours keeping track of things, and I just needed a way to make it quick. I would say that my method could probably be improved upon in some way. It's definitely not necessarily perfect, but let me just open Word and make sure that's in the right spot. Tis. So yeah, and I definitely, like, I know it's not one size fits all for method and that sort of thing. But that's a look at sort of how I organize mine and how it works for me. I'm really annoyed by tech companies that insist on either making low quality products or purposely breaking their products in order to sell more products when we've advanced to the point that a lot of these products are necessary to participate in society. Preach. I'm annoyed by that too. And I went to school for IT and technology. I know just enough about software, like composition, about the back end of how software is made, to be really annoyed by what is essentially lazy programming, and or like programming that isn't really optimized for user experience. I really liked Windows 7. I felt like Windows 7 was peak Windows. I hate Windows 8. I hate Windows 10. I don't want to touch Windows 11 because I've been told that it takes away certain features that I rely on, such as it forces you to have your taskbar on a specific screen and it centers everything on it? Question mark? Excuse me? And that the grouping, they took away like the grouping options and all that. Like, that might not seem... Can you change that, Wolf? Because Flutter told me that you can't change where your taskbar is. You might need to talk to Flutter, because she was saying that her taskbar was stuck on a window she didn't want it on, a screen she didn't want it on. Do you use multiple screens? Because I think she said it's stuck in the middle and she can't move it. Yeah, I will upgrade to Windows 11 when they pry Windows 10 out of my cold dead hands. I don't want to touch Windows 11. I don't want to think about Windows 11. I don't want to preview Windows 11. I just want my stuff to work the same way it's always worked. My philosophy is, if it's not broken, don't fix it. Because if you fix it, if you update it, it's gonna break. So, because that's been my experience. Every time I update things break. I just want my stuff to work every day. My computer just updated to Windows 11 like 2 days ago. No, Bard! Good luck! Good luck! Godspeed. So far, it's not terrible. That's not a screaming endorsement. It's the brutal capitalism, breaking your own products to create more products that works on companies too. Yeah. Oh yeah, we could go down a deep, deep rabbit hole here. I'm probably gonna wrap up here shortly. Probably gonna do a raid if you guys have a preference. We can look for someone who's writing to raid. We can look for someone who's gaming to raid. It just depends on what everybody wants today. If you guys have any more questions, now's the time, because I'll stick around if you guys have more stuff you want me to talk about. I am going to have to go get lunch soon, but I'm happy to... I'm not in a rush to end stream. We all want more Megan time. Aw, you guys. I'm super happy to hang out with you. I do want to say thank you to everyone who's hung out, who's suggested topics, who's contributed to the conversation. I really appreciate it. 5 more hours. My favorite color is blue. I like the color blue. When I was young, my favorite color was red, but since pretty much teenage years, my favorite color's been blue. Blue and silver, favorite combo. Gold, screw it. Silver is so much better. But I do, again, thank you to everyone who has hung out, contributed to the conversation. It means a lot to me that you guys come out to hear about what I have to say and what's going on with me. I know this started out as being about like what I'm doing, but I appreciate having the writing conversation, the shop talk, because that's also what I'm here for. And sometimes during productivity streams, it's harder to have those conversations because I have to say, okay, we've talked about this for 10 minutes. I have to move on. But in these streams, we can talk about stuff for pretty much however long we want to talk about stuff, right? Which is why I like to sometimes just have a just chatting stream. I actually think I forgot to change the topic to just chatting this whole time. So that's great. I remembered in like the last 10 minutes. Excited that I actually got to be here for most of one of your streams. Yeah, Bard, I'm glad that we got to actually talk, because usually you get to ask like one question and then you have to run. Talking about writing and critiques counts as writing. Indeed, today it does. And those are important conversations to have because they are part of the writing process that I think falls through the cracks more often than not. And so getting to have frank conversations about those kinds of things are important. Always good writing advice and discussion. Aw, Roaming Witch, thank you. Favorite philosophical concept explored in Star Trek. The idea that humanity is not unique to humans, and that things which are non-human can sometimes be more human than humans. That's right, I gave you a serious answer to that. I'm not going to do a 3-hour lecture, but I gave you a serious answer. AB Coffee was looking forward to the stream all week, missed the whole thing. No, I'm so sorry. There will be a VOD. You should be able to watch the VOD. Won't be able to ask me questions during the VOD. We had a lot of good discussion. I was hoping to see you, AB Coffee. It's Thursday. It's usually your non-meeting day, but I'm assuming you had meetings all day. Gonna start writing my book next week, structuring the chapters. Nice! Neo, I'm gonna be writing again next week too, so hopefully we'll get to do some of that together. You can tell from my answer to the Star Trek question probably that my favorite characters are Spock and Data. One of my favorite episodes, one of my top rated episodes of all time is there's an episode of The Next Generation where Data was supposed to basically go report to somebody because they acted as though the Federation owned him. So they were going to basically send him to somebody to be disassembled. And his crewmates were like, that's bullshit. He's sentient. He should be able to decide for himself. And so there's this really thought-provoking episode where they basically have to do a human rights trial to decide if Data is sentient and has human rights. And because the station where it takes place is short-staffed, Picard has to argue in favor of Data, and Riker has to actually argue against it. And he has to actually serve that role, or they will rule definitively against Data. So he actually has to try and prove that someone he cares about deeply is not sentient in order to prove that he is sentient. And it's just this whole, it's mind-blowing. It's really good. Not your fault life happens. I know, but you've been hanging out so long with us, AB Coffee. I'm really sad that you missed the stream. But the VOD is there if you're interested in what's going on with me, if you want to skim through the VOD and get any of the insights. And then if you have any questions that we didn't get to go over, you can ask them next stream, and we can talk about them next stream. I have only seen small bits of Star Trek whilst walking through the living room with my dad and watching it as a child. Wear my glasses? I will wear my glasses for the end of stream. If you're interested in getting into Star Trek, Bard, I have a series of posts on my blog where I recommend the must-watch Star Trek episodes from the original series and The Next Generation. I'm a huge Star Trek nerd. I highly recommend them. The first series, the original series, is very campy. Some of it doesn't hold up very well in terms of, like, there's literally an episode in the third season about why women can't be captains in Star Trek. They've obviously retconned that now. There's definitely some episodes that are worth it if you can handle the camp. Data is such a good character. Data is the best character. And Brent Spiner is such an amazing actor. Like, I can't. I love when Data had a daughter. That was the episode that made me fall in love with Star Trek. I saw the episode where Data had a daughter, and I was like, I must now binge watch all of the Star Trek forever for the rest of my life. Do you actually have a question and know the answer, but I do believe every writer in here would like to hear it out loud. Go ahead and ask, AB Coffee. I said I'm not in a hurry to wrap up, so I can definitely answer another question. I don't know when I would even have time to watch it at this point. I used to watch it on my lunch breaks. There is a lot of it. I keep piling things higher on my plate and it's just sliding off. You should take time for you, though, Bard. You should have you time. You time is very important. Now you have glasses. Like, I'm supposed to wear these all the time. These are actual prescription glasses. I just don't wear them at my computer because I'm bad. Although actually I say that, but my eye doctor did tell me that if I don't need them, because I asked him, I was like, should I wear my glasses all the time even if I don't feel like I need them at my computer? And he was like, no, if you're comfortable doing something up close and you don't feel like you need them, it's fine to not wear them. So I use them specifically for when I'm looking at distance thing. My glasses look so nice on me. Well, thank you. I don't have anything against my glasses. I will say that when I got these glasses, I got cheaper lenses. So the coating on them isn't as good and they are a bit scratched up. Bring in the green Orions. Is that supposed to be Orions or onions? Though I'm the same with the glasses. Yeah, it's just a comfort thing. Like, it's just easier for me to not wear them at my computer. Because even now, like, I can see that they're smudgy. And so I just get less distracted by the smudges on my glasses if I only wear them for distance things. I have an opening line I've worked on for a long time. It's simple, clever, and meaningful. My friend says it's garbage and doesn't understand the level of impact it has. How do I let them know that unless a peer review of 20 other writers or editors tells me it's actually bad, I'm probably not changing it, not to disrespect a friend, but they don't get it? My answer would be, at the end of the day, we talked about constructive feedback earlier. So first of all, has this friend told you, have they just said it's garbage and I don't understand it? Or have they explained why they think it's garbage? Because it's garbage is not constructive feedback. So first of all, that's not helpful. Also, if you've tried to explain it and they're still like, whatever, then probably they're not worth listening to. But at the end of the day, we kind of talked about this earlier. At the end of the day, the only person who can make a decision on the composition, the style, the content of a story is the writer. At the end of the day, the only person who knows that story well enough to make a decision like that is the person writing it. You're the only person who knows the details of that novel enough. Also, I'd love to hear the opening line. I'd love to give my opinion on it. Completely out of context. You're the only one who can make that decision. You're the only one who fully understands the impact of leaving it, of changing it. And at the end of the day, if it feels good to you, if it feels right, if it feels like it's doing the work, and you feel like changing it would harm the work, then it's your right to keep it there. And if your friend doesn't like that, they can stuff it. They can go write their own book. And they can come up with an opening line. No constructive, of course not non-writers don't really get that either. Oh no, Type Orange! We're wrapping up soon, but hello! Welcome to stream! Type Orange, how are you? How did your raid? How did your stream go? Type Orange. Crushing art? What kind of art were you doing on stream today? Stream was nice. Good. We're talking a little bit about constructive criticism here again. Not to put you on the spot, AB Coffee, but I would love to see what the opening line is. How did your raid go? please rate your raid experience. You guys. Words are hard, okay? I tried to say letter and I said leather. You guys should expect this. I was testing out my art tablet I just bought. Nice! Supernatural, here's a hydrate for you. I'm almost out of coffee. Drew this guy. Aw, so cute! I love that little guy. How do you feel about the tablet? The fire went out in an instant. That's not a bad line. What? Actually, I think that's a very catchy line. Why did the fire go out? What is the significance of the fire? These are reasons why I would continue to read the rest of the paragraph. One by Wacom. It works very well so far. Nice! I have done very little digital drawing myself. I do a little bit of it on my iPad, but I've always been interested in doing more of it. I just never have... I spend too much time writing, I never have time for art. Definitely want to know what the heck is going on with the fire. Yeah, a good opening line... this gets talked about a lot, but a good opening line is something that makes the reader want to know more about the story. I have no context I have no description of this story. I have no context of the genre or, you know, what the plot is about or anything. I haven't read the back blurb, but I am instantly interested by reading this to know why the fire went out, what is the significance of the fire, because it must be an important fire, and what are the consequences of the fire going out. And also the speed, because that seems important too. There's enough in that opening line to hook me into wanting to know more. That's what an opening line is supposed to do. It's supposed to make you want to know more. And since you shared one of yours, I'll share one of mine. We've been talking a lot about the Aravalia Chronicles, so I will share the opening lines from Eyes of a Stranger, the first part of the Aravalia Chronicles. It says, and I quote, "Watching her reflection assume a stranger's appearance turned Clara's dream into a nightmare." There you go. Everybody share an opening line? Yeah, anybody who wants to can share an opening line. Seems like the friend's opinion is the actual garbage. I agree. 100%. I have very little context for that opening line, but I see nothing wrong with it. So at the end of the day, really, it's up to an author to decide what the best thing is for the story. And it sounds like your friend just wants you to change it to please them, and that would be silly. You have to do what's best for the story. I want to read all the opening lines. Here, I'll copy and paste mine. I tried to look in the mirror for illusion, but the mirror was made of my face. Neo, that's not a bad line. That's amazing. What are you talking about? Also, you said they barely read, so yeah. I mean, if they, yeah. Is it even their genre? Rate this opening. Long ago in a galaxy far, far away. It's a pretty good opening line. I mean, it makes me want to know how long ago. What is this galaxy? What happened? Hopefully the tidbit helps others too. Indeed, yeah. Opening lines are something that you can debate, like, endlessly, right? People spend hours and days and months on opening lines. And it's such a subjective thing too. Like, not everyone is gonna like your opening line, but like, to just summarily dismiss it as garbage, that seems like really shitty feedback. Type Orange, thank you so much for the lurk. No worries about rating and running. Doctor's appointment, I hope it goes well. You take care. Again, thank you so much for dropping in. We're going to be heading on our own raid adventure pretty soon. Mine is 2 lines, but it gets better impact, I hope. A dark rider on a red horse raced through the forest, hooves thundering on the uneven ground and branches reaching out, snagging and scraping at their faces and sides. Behind them, something rippled just above the tree line, black against black. I like that. It's very evocative. Star Wars Episode 9, Darth Jar Jar. I would watch it. I think it might be better than the new trilogy that we got. Yes, Neo, I think that's a very good opening line. I tried to look in the mirror for illusion, but the mirror was... I would change it to, but the mirror was my face, instead of the mirror was made of my face. But the concept is the same. It's very good. Poo-poo was the actual criticism. Really? AB Coffee, I kind of want to punch this friend of yours. I'm not gonna lie. That is not helpful feedback at all. Your friend is poo-poo. I shouldn't say that, but I just did. Cold prickles up my arms and across my shoulders, meeting the rising hairs on the back of my neck. Nice. They're my teammates, so he better read it because we're in it together all the same. Out of curiosity, does the teammate have something they want to change? Like, do they just have a line that they want to change it to? Is that the issue? Do they just have a different line that they want to use? Is that what the issue is? Like, because it sounds like they just want it to be something else. In which case, nothing except what they want is going to make them happy, which is not helpful either. I am going to peek on Twitch here and see who might be online. Oh, I did have that. Just save that just in case. That line was one of my few actually published flash fictions. Nice! Well, thank you for sharing it with us, Bard. It definitely... Ooh, gosh, sorry. It definitely evokes an image. That was a frog crawling up my throat there. Made of my face because the character is stuck in paranoia and self-inflicted criticism. Everything is against him. At least it's what he thinks. Yeah, I just think in English, and this could be a French to English thing. In English, made of my face is just an awkward phrasing. It's not the way that we would term it. But obviously in French, there's probably more nuance to that. So it's hard for me to give you feedback because you're writing in another language, right? So you obviously have to take what I say with a grain of salt because I don't know French language and I don't know French language nuances. Everything is made of his face because he's his own enemy. That's a very interesting concept. I'll share the whole thing in Discord in case anybody wants to read it. Nice, please do. Anybody who ever wants to post links to their stuff, please don't hesitate in the writing chat to share links. I can't promise that, like, I'll be able to read everything or give feedback, but I definitely want people to be able to share. Let's see. Who is around? Who is doing things? Gonna try and come up with a starter line just for the hell of it and suddenly remembered I'm stupid. Leader, you're not stupid. Opening lines are hard. Harder than many of the rest of the things, in all honesty. You are a fine writer, Neo. You're fine. It's an amazing concept, and it's a great line. I don't know why you think it's not a good line. Should we maybe have a channel just for sharing pieces, requesting feedback? I can't always make time to read and give feedback, but I could probably do some. Yeah, I will get Ghost to help me with that when he gets home tonight. Sorry, I'm just peeking at some streams here. Sure. I admit that I am a mod on the Discord, but know very little about how the Discord works. So there you go. We might drop in on Bitzerk because we haven't done that in a while. That's what I meant. We spend more than acceptable amounts of time thinking about the first line. I believe in you, Neo. Yes. Absolutely. He just thought it was lame. I mean, thinking something is lame isn't good feedback. That's not, like, why does he think... If he can't tell you why he thinks something is lame, then he's just being a jerk. Hey, Kademon! Did I say that right? We are about to do a raid, but how are you? Welcome to the stream. Oh my goodness, I need to go get some lunch foods.
Challenge.
Ooh, I think Bitzerk has kitty cam on today. Ooh la la. The friend sounds like the lame one. Yeah. I mean, it sucks if you're a teammate working on something and the teammate's just being a jerk about it. Feel sweaty, tired, and worn out. Not the best to try to be creative and right. Oh no! I would say have a nice cool drink. Get relaxed and see if that helps. It sounds like you were either working or exercising. For example, this scene doesn't land because the dialogue is clunky and stilted. Exactly. That would be helpful feedback. Just back from work. Ah, yeah. You gotta take some time to relax and recover. It's hard. It's hard to come home from work and do creative stuff. Absolutely. Because creativity requires energy, and if you've just given a whole bunch of your energy to work, it's really hard to find the energy. Hopefully, once you get some relaxation and feel cooler and not so worn out, you'll hopefully be able to do the creative stuff. Hey, Kiki! The warm weather drains all initiative. I feel that. When it's hot, like, I just feel like melting. Just melting into the couch. It reminds me of people telling me that what I write is dog shit for no reason because when I asked why, they said because. Yeah, if they can't give you a solid reason, they're just being jerks. And they're not worth listening to if they're just being jerks. It is 1:30 here in the afternoon, my time, which means it is food time for me. I hate to run on you guys, but I do need to feed myself. I can't very well tell you guys to all take care of yourselves and not take care of myself. So we're gonna do a raid. I think we're gonna go drop in on Bitzerk unless someone has a suggestion for somewhere else they'd like to go. Thank you all again for hanging out. I'm sorry that some of you only got to come in at the end, Kademon and AB Coffee, especially since you're looking forward to this stream, AB Coffee. But hopefully, be able to catch me next week. Been inspired by stories I heard on audiobooks. Nice! We'll try to write stories with mature content. Good luck. I do have to leave, unfortunately. We've been going for a while, and I do need some food. I would love, like, everyone who's like, 5 more hours. I would love to give you 5 more hours, but I do have to eat food. And in order to eat food, I have to go prepare food, and I don't feel like going... I feel like going on a BRB for half an hour and then coming back would be rude. But, I mentioned this earlier, I am taking a bit of time off this weekend. I am just taking some of my own advice for relax and recharge. I'm gonna go do my Dr. Facilier puzzle that I previewed earlier. I'm gonna open this bad boy, 1,000 pieces. I'm gonna do that. So I won't be around at the beginning of next week, but I will be back on Wednesday for edits with for edits on book 6 of the Arvalia Chronicles. We'll be starting that Wednesday afternoon. I should be streaming Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday next week. So there will be a schedule published on the Discord this weekend for that. Big holiday in Sweden this weekend, Midsummer's Eve. That's awesome that you guys actually celebrate Midsummer's Eve. I love that. Do you have plans? Is there a festival? I'm out all this week, but enjoy the weekend. And as always, I believe in all your writing. AB Coffee, thank you for dropping by, even if it was only at the end. Really appreciate you hanging out. Hopefully I'll see you next week, if not the week after. I'll be back to a more regular schedule once the break ends. Eat and drink? Hey, eating and drinking is my favorite way to celebrate. I'm not gonna lie. That's one thing you learn with beta reading. There's a constructive way to give feedback and a shit way to give feedback. Wolf is very good at the constructive feedback, as I mentioned many, many times earlier. Do we know if it will show my name on the doc when I share the link in Discord? I don't know. You could PM it to me and test and see how it shows up. You could always delete the message that you send me after too if it shows your name and you don't want it to know. I don't know a lot about Google Docs, so I don't know how that works. Welcome back, Kiki. We are wrapping up so that I can go grab some food. I think we're going to go drop in on Bitzerk, who is doing Hair Daily short fiction, because we haven't gotten to drop over there in a while. Here is one last hydrate for the road. Send it to Carly to make sure. Yeah, for sure. Don't post anything that that you don't want. That is not how we do a raid. I have forgotten how Twitch works. Thank you. Let's get this raid started. Here is the raid call. Nope. There is the raid call. If you don't have my emotes, feel free to use any emotes that make your heart happy. The most important thing is we go spread some love around. Thank you all so much for hanging out and chatting with me today, for your interest in my projects and my opinion. It means a lot to me, and I appreciate getting to have these frank conversations. Like I said, I am going to be back next Wednesday with some more edits. We'll probably do 2 editing streams and another story in the 22 Stories in 2022 project. Hopefully I'm going to be doing another book cover on stream soon. Lots of cool things to look forward to. If I missed anything, please feel free to post a question in the Discord or bring it to the next stream. Love you all. Hope you have a great day, night, morning, evening all around. Same from me, Woof. I love you. Thank you for being such an awesome beta reader. Thank you, Bard, for all the bits today and for all the thoughtful questions as well. Everybody, please take care. Get some enjoyment out of the weekend, and I'll see you again soon.
Adventures in pet sitting.